Bruce, you must have something really good too.
Of course I do. It's Bruce Danielson, and I guess I'm here to entertain you too.
Good evening and welcome to the Tuesday, March 5, Sioux Falls City Council meeting. Clerk, let's go ahead and read our roll this evening.
Councilmember Selberg, Sale.
Here.
Starr.
Here.
Staley. Brecky.
Here.
Erickson.
Here.
Kylie.
Here.
Neitzert.
Here.
All right, we're honored to have Pastor Austin White with Celebrate Community Church with us tonight to kick off our meeting with the invocation. So I'd ask that you rise for that and then stay standing for the Pledge of Allegiance to follow immediately after.
Let's talk to God together. Father God, you are so good. We're so thankful for you, and we're thankful that, God, you love this city. You love this region. Father, we are so incredibly thankful for that you love this city more than we can ever imagine. And God, I thank you so much for Mayor Tenhaken, for all the government employees, for all the representatives, God, the way that they move behind the scenes, the way that they work, God. And I thank you so much for every single person in this city, Lord. I pray that we would just continue to strive after your good, continue to strive to be better, continue to strive to love our neighbors as ourselves. So God, I pray for tonight. It says in your word that, Holy Spirit, you are the great counselor. So God, we pray that you would move, that you would speak, and that, God, your will would be done. So God, we pray that your kingdom would come and your will would be done here in this place, in this city, and in this world as it is in heaven. In the powerful and beautiful name of Jesus, amen.
Amen. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Is that me?
All right, I'm going to invite Councilor Sale, I believe, or Councilor Erickson. Okay, audible. To join me at the front, we have our superhero awards we're going to give out for this month.
Good evening, everyone. Tonight we are going to honor two very special people for their volunteerism and their service to this community. First of all, I want to invite Don Kelpin. Please come forward. I'd like to tell you a little bit about Don and the nomination. Don is a well-respected leader who possesses vast knowledge about the military, employer support of the Guard and Reserve, or ESGR, and the Uniformed Services Employment and Reemployment Rights Act, or USERRA, as well as a drive to please all of the employees, service members, and volunteers. Don willingly gives of his time and talents to the Soldier Readiness Process, a program called Boss Lift, that connects employers with National Guard and reservists. He brings his can-do attitude and strives to make sure that all inquiries from the service members are addressed quickly, along with following up afterwards to make sure all is well. Don selflessly gives of himself to ESGR whenever volunteers are needed, oftentimes being the first to raise his hand to support an event. What ESGR does is critical to our national defense, and Don goes above and beyond to increase our community's awareness of what ESGR's role is and its importance. Our South Dakota Guard and Reserve are in good hands with Don, a true patriot and a superhero. Congratulations, Don. We'd like to And before you go, I know you have some special guests here. I'd like you to, why don't you introduce your guests that you brought with you today?
Oh.
Would you like to introduce them?
This is my wife, Carol. This is Lloyd Floyd. She was the one that introduced me, and she's one of our all-around fantastic volunteers with ESGR from Sioux Falls.
Wonderful. Thank you for being here. Thank you again for your service and volunteerism. Our second award, if we could have Principal Kirsten Dauberpool and the John Harris elementary employees that are here. Welcome. Welcome so much. This one's really special to me as well because I know Kirsten very well, and this really is a true testament to her leadership as well as all the employees at John Harris Elementary. Last month, when the region faced a polar vortex and temperatures dropped to dangerously low wind chills, the Sioux Falls School District announced an early dismissal. When parents arrived to pick up their kids, they found Principal Kirsten Dauberpool and the John Harris Elementary School staff going above and beyond by keeping each student warm and safe inside while the school they ran outside one by one to connect each vehicle with the student, so the kids did not have to be made vulnerable in the cold temperatures. This is sacrificial love, above and beyond what is required of educators, and blew every parent away as the staff risked themselves in the bone-chilling cold weather. Their kindness and caring spirit will never be forgotten. Their actions increase the pride parents feel in having their children be part of the Sioux Falls School District. This selfless and caring effort by Principal Dauberpool and the John Harris Elementary School employees exemplify what it means to be an everyday superhero. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you for what you've done. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. The cash prize. Thank you. Thank you. Get in here. Thank you for being here.
Don't feel like you have to leave. We're just warming up. You certainly can. We have school.
It's online.
It's good. Okay. Okay. All right.
Yeah, it's online.
It's online, so we're good. Okay. Okay, we'll move on to item 5, which is the approval of the consent agenda.
Move to approve, Erickson.
Okay, move to approve by Councilor Erickson.
Second,
Is there a
Neitzer.
second? Second by Neitzer. Councilor Brecky.
I need to have you separate out item 61 because I need to recuse myself from discussion on that item.
Okay. We'll pull item 61 from the consent agenda. Any other consent agenda changes? Okay. Seeing none, do I have I have a motion to approve in a second. No more discussion. We'll take a vote then.
Item 61 from the listing of contracts, correct?
Correct.
Not from the consent agenda. Okay,
From the contracts, right.
okay.
Correct.
Councilmember Sale,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Staley,
Yes.
Brecky,
Yes.
Erickson,
Yes.
Kylie,
Yes.
Neitzer.
Yes.
All right, that passes 7-0. We'll move on to the regular agenda.
Move to approve, Erickson.
Okay, motion to approve.
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Kylie. Any discussion on that, Council? All right, can I get a vote on that, please?
Councilmember Sale,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Staley,
Yes.
Brecky,
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
Kylie.
Yes.
Neitzer.
Yes.
All right, that's passed 7-0. We're now at the public input portion of tonight's agenda. As a reminder, input during tonight's meeting will last no more than 3 minutes per person, and in total last no more than 30 minutes. During this portion of the meeting, persons may not address items appearing later on in the regular agenda. For those items after general public input, input is limited to 3 minutes unless the item is being presented for final adoption, at which case public input is limited to 5 minutes. At this time, I'd like to invite members of the public forward who wish to speak. And clerk, please note our time is 7:10. Good evening.
Scott Ersman, Sioux Falls. I wanted to give you an update on some of the things that have happened since we decided that we were going to be bullied into passing 5G for our city. Over 80 counties and cities across the country are now suing the federal government due to the fact that home rule and the federal government's overstep of power. State of California is also going to be suing because they feel that the data, there's no data control and what is going to be done with the data. President Trump has even said that he doesn't want the 5G antennas to be bought from China due to spyware. And he's afraid that spyware is going to be installed in these antennas. There also has been several issues of health concerns. The Wall Street Journal had a video out recently saying that 5G rollout is going to take a very long time. And the reason they're putting these in big cities right now is basically to use us as lab rats. And Sioux Falls was picked to be a lab rat because they were forced into it by John Thune, who's gotten $1 million from the telecom industry, and the FCC changing their rules. And 5G actually doesn't exist. It's advanced version of 4G. It's a lie. And Sprint is actually suing one of the companies, I think it's Sprint or AT&T, is suing one or the other because of the lie of that it's not even 5G. And the fact is, even if 5G does come into effect, you have to have a 5G phone and you have to have a 5G tablet. You just can't automatically use 5G. And that technology is not really for sale yet. Like I said, we're being used as lab rats, and I think that the council needs to go back on the 5G. I also have an incredibly huge problem with the fact that we are not charging the telecoms what we should be charging them for this, to use this as research. I mean, that's what they're usually basically doing. They're using this as research tools. And one more thing before I go. I'd like to thank Teresa Staley for pushing for the inmate work program, and I'm glad to see the administration's getting on board with that. Thank you.
Anyone else for public input tonight? Good evening.
Hi, my name is Carmen Gross, also from Sioux Falls. I'd like to thank the council, first of all, for allowing us to still be able to get our public input at the beginning. I know that was something that was looked at changing. I'm here to share an experience that I had, and the best way I could do this was bring it in front of council with the mayor and hopefully Park and Recs. I recently took our grandchildren on February 24th to the Midco Aquatic Center, and I have a lot of pride in that facility as I was lucky enough to be one of the representatives from the community on the task force. And so that's kind of our fun place to go. And I had one of the most horrifying experiences there in my life. And I'm hoping to bring this to you guys, not to try to bully or bash anybody, but to do better for our community, to do better for our kids. I took our grandchildren, ages 13 to 10, as well as my daughter and her friend from college, age 21. And we got there about noon, and we were there until about 2:45. The pool was a little bit more crowded. We had the swim meet going on that weekend as well, and that was gonna open up about 3. So the kids checked in about every 15 minutes or so, checking the time, see when they could go to the diving boards. My grandson came about 2:45 and looked horrified and tried to pull himself together as he was telling us that he was told that if he got back in the water, the police would be called on him. And they would be out there to talk to him and arrest him. And my 21-year-old then took him to the side to see what was going on, went to the lifeguards to figure out who had made this comment. I seen a couple people talk to her when she waved me over, and to come find out the pool manager made these comments. I took him, we asked to speak to him, and he said if we wanted to talk to him, we needed to go find him. So I took the kids to find out what was going on, find out that they were actually playing they called it shark, they were playing tag in the water. And went up there. As I get to the counter, because I have the kids get out of the pool, they're in their swimsuits, we get to the counter, there's 2 employees sitting there talking about a child in the pool. I put my hands down and I said, I need to talk to whoever told my grandson they're calling the police on him. When the manager comes out and says, that was me, and first of all, your grandson was trying to choke his sister when they were playing tag and he was reaching for her. And second of all, he has a bad attitude, but I see where he gets this from. 3 to 4 times in that conversation, he referred to my attitude and how bad it was. And that's how my grandson has a bad attitude. When I asked him for this report he was telling me he was filling out, he told me that I was not allowed to have that. I did explain to him I would be coming to see the mayor as well as city council members and as well as Park and Rec, and let him know again I was on that committee, and that is not what we were expecting for our citizens to get when we were meeting and that kind of experience. So I guess I'm just asking for you guys to look in at how we are teaching them how to work with children and how to communicate with adults, because coming at me and accusing me of having a bad attitude and just the whole entire experience and telling us that that's normal, that's their policy, is to call the police, is not right. Thank you.
Thanks, Carmen. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor. First of all, I haven't seen you since you got elected. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thanks for all the good work that you're doing
Thank
for the
you.
city, and thank you for all the good work that the council members are doing. And Kurt, I just want to tell you, you're my council man, person. Teresa Staley is actually the person why I'm here. I have a few photos that I want to share with everybody. I know potholes are a big problem in the city right now. Everybody's trying to either be mean or compassionate about it, and I just want everyone to know I have 2 claims of fame. 1, my grandfather started the Westward Ho, and 2, Steve Matley was my uncle. And I just want to say, as far as the city goes, I'm passionate about it. What I want to get to is the situation with the signs that are down. I understand that the potholes are a problem, but this particular situation, this sign here, as you can see, was plowed down, for lack of better city terminology, I think. And the end of it was sticking in the street, and it popped out my tire. As you can see, I got out of my car when I got my tire fixed, and I moved it out of the street into the boulevard so it wouldn't pop anybody else's tire. I called non-emergency police, and I asked them to please, look at the situation. They went over there and looked at the situation, and then they informed me that due to the fact that it was like a hit and run, there's no conversation about it. But the thing that was odd is not only did this one poke my tire, as I drove further down, the next picture was also down. So I'm kind of wondering if it's the plows that are doing it. And when I talked to Glenn, he told me they're not going to reimburse me for my tire, which I have a picture of next. Well, we'll go back. Let's just talk about this one. Okay, so I went back to take the picture of the same sign that was down, and the sign is now replaced and plowed down again. So either somebody plowed it down in a car or the plow took it down again. And my point is this, Mayor, I think you're awesome. I ran a campaign for my ex-husband, Randy Osted, and we had an ambassadors council, and I really think that the citizens should have known, like, there was 1 sign down and not another sign down, or 2 signs down, and our citizens can get more involved and say, hey, even if it's not them that got hurt, like, let's have ambassadors for each council member to tell the city what's going on, because you can't fix it if we don't tell you. Here's the hole in my tire. It's very clear, punctured from a sign that was sticking in the middle of the street. I spoke with Glenn. He told me that I had to find the person who plowed down the sign. So in light of that, I started going around the city, and I found there are a lot of signs down. And someone like me, I used to be part of the 99%. People don't know this, but I paid Randy Osted child support. I did so well in real estate. I'm now part of the 1%, and this is taking food off of mine and my daughter's table. This puncture of my tire, which is $128, and I also have to have the hubcap fixed. I live on disability. Yes, it's true. I started a flat fee real estate company, $2,500. I sell your house, which is starting this week. But right now, this is food off my table, Mayor. I need to be reimbursed. Thank you.
Thank you. And I would ask Erica Beck, our Chief of Staff, if you can just get her information, and we'll follow up with you on this. Good evening.
Good evening. I am Bridget Myers. I live at 6209 West Oscar House Circle. And I'm coming in to speak to you today about some concerns that I have about a development going on, obviously behind my home. I've been in touch with a few of you. Obviously, a few of you wrote me back. Thank you so much. I appreciate the information I did receive today. My main concern is we are presenting an ordinance. It looks like it's going to be read tomorrow at meeting at 6 p.m. tomorrow night. I cannot be there. So I'm just going to kind of give some of my comments just because a few of you are here that will be able to hear that. My concern is that the development behind us, the water study that was done by the city said that the 6300 West 41st Street was flooding our neighborhood. We were told by the city engineer that they were going to be doing a boring and ground study and that we were going to be told when that was and be able to see the results of that. Now I received an email today that they're saying that the city does not require that at all. So I guess I'm confused. I have it on recording in a meeting where we were told that by the city, and now I'm being told that that was not a requirement. I did see about 2 weeks ago, there was a company by the name of Geotech that came out and did some drilling behind our homes, boring down, putting in test wells is what we were told. They put in what appears to be about 5 test wells to test the water behind us. What is known about our area? I grew up in this area, and there is lots of natural springs and aquifers. Many of the homeowners were told their houses were built on natural springs. About 2 weeks ago when that engineering firm was out there, they said water was hit at less than 9 feet. They hit sand, it went clay, sand, and water. And behind my house in particular, they never did hit solid ground, is what we were told. I have big concerns about a 3-story apartment complex and an underground parking going up behind my home if there is an aquifer back there. And how big is this thing underground? I would like to know what is going on, but we're now out of the loop because the rezone got passed. And so when the rezone got passed, it cut the neighbors out of loop. We no longer get any information. So I'm kind of disappointed that that has happened, that we're no longer kept in the loop about what's going on. I would like to see more work being done in the committees before it comes out to you guys. I feel like a lot is pushed on you. I wish that more of this stuff would be worked out at committee before it's brought in front of you. One of the things that we had happen is we were brought into negotiations. There was no negotiation. We were told we had to take what we got, and we were not allowed to counter or compromise at all. I'm concerned about if they have to bring in dirt because of this aquifer. Is that going to change the height of the building if they have to bring in 5 feet of dirt? Now, is that going to mean that they can still put a 60-foot building after they brought in 5 feet of dirt? One of the other concerns I have is if I bought that piece of land behind my house, which I was not offered to do, but if I did put that in, I could only build a 35-foot house, but yet we're going to allow a 60-foot building.
Bridget,
so
thanks
I
for
just
your
have some
feedback.
concerns about that. If you guys could consider that with the ordinance, those are some of the things I have concerns about.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Sarah Broussard, Sioux Falls. I want to congratulate the police department for the reverse Johnning that they did this sting. There was over 100 Johns, but only 2 was caught. As you well know, that Mr. Cutler can be charged with aiding and abetting for his illegal massage that he has with Asian Moonlight. We're working on number 6 of his tenants on count 2 with massaging without a license. I would like to see more proactive people in peer on these illegal massages going on in the city. We have illegal massaging, illegal immigrants working in here, and we have human trafficking and prostitution going on. There is a prostitution, human trafficking case that the feds are working on now that I'm not going to comment on, but it's going to come out to the media. But I'm just letting you know that the massage parlors need to be looked at closer than what we're looking at them for right now. I am tired of going to Asian Moonlight and all of these places and getting these people on camera and busting them, saying that they were getting massages from there. So we're going to work on this lady on count 2 and count 3 and count 4 and count 5 until she eventually goes to jail and gets a felony and goes to Kingpin. Now, these are illegal immigrants. Now, we had the chief of police presentation today that was canceled. The public should have been aware of that. My issue was, when I addressed it to the mayor and I addressed it to the chief of police, because it's not our chief of police, it's the city's chief of police, City Hall's, that paper, that statistic report that came out just so quickly today should have been in the hands of council members before he came and presented that. I want you to know that on that crime statistic, that the crime has rose since 2016. Just last week in Central District, 5 stabbings, 1 armed robbery, and a shooting in a drug house within an 8-block radius. We got a problem here, guys. I'm dead serious. When the statistic comes out, I gave y'all the statistics already because Chief Burns wasn't giving it up and City Hall wasn't either. We need to talk about this, and when people present stuff to council, they need to present it to where they can look at it first before coming and presenting their case to council. You just don't come up here like Chief Burns and present the crime, and council don't have no clue what's going on. Just drop it on their laps. Absolutely not. This is not transparency. I asked the mayor, he better get on this chief of policeman and give this council the statistics on this before presentation.
You. Good evening.
Okay, good evening. So my name is Alyssa. I'm also, I live in Sioux Falls as well, and my mom is Carmen, who talked about the Midco Aquatic Center. And I also experienced some things that she didn't experience, so I just wanted to have them noted just because I go to the University of Sioux Falls and I'm studying education. And there was just a few things that were happening with the kids that I was just brought up some concerns. So like she mentioned, on March 24th, we went with our family to escape the cold. And when my nephew approached us with as he was, crying because he was told he was going to get arrested, I said, "It's okay, bud, like, it's just a misunderstanding, let's go figure out what's going on." And so I went to the lifeguard station, and while I was there, someone was kind enough to say, "You know what, let me go find the manager, we'll get this taken care of." And another lifeguard, who I had no idea who it was, just approached me and goes, "By the way, he's really disobedient, but I can see where he gets it from." And I was taken back because I'm not a mean person at all. And so for him to say something along those lines to me was very alarming. And I said, "Okay, well, I'll speak to the manager," which is when one of the other lifeguards had came out to me and said, "You know what, if you want to talk to him, he says you need to go see him." And that's when my mother took him up. As we were packing up our things, because we decided at that point it was just best for us to leave, another mom had approached us who had watched the situation and said that my nephew wasn't really doing much of anything. There was a lot of kids, and it was really crowded in that area, and that the situation was completely handled out of control. So my concern basically for you today is just what training is going into our managers at the pool and the lifeguards, just because we weren't approached with an issue. If there was an issue, I would have gladly talked to my nephew and my nieces on their behavior in the pool, just because I do understand, you're in a public place, you can't just run around like you're crazy. And so just what kind of communication is set up for you to tell us that it's not in your policy, that it's okay to threaten a 13-year-old boy to be arrested, and then to have my niece come up to me bawling because she thinks her big brother is going to jail, who she's watched other people go to jail, so that's like a traumatizing experience for a 10-year-old. So I'm just wondering about the policies that are in place to prevent that from happening to another family, because now they're afraid to go to the pool. So that's all.
Thanks, Alyssa.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Jim Stanka. Just want to say, Teresa, thank you for sending the mailing out. I get a lot of people that ask me if I got it. They got it. I wish a lot of other people could get it, because there's some that ask if I have it, so I pass mine around. My mom passes hers around so other people can read it. Just another way of people being able to see what's going on in the city and goes on in the city council. They do appreciate it. As I said last meeting, when I work out, I talk to a lot of people that I work out with. And I told them the last meeting that we had to watch the city council meeting and find out what the vote would be on that 50+1. I told them everybody that was going to vote no, and I told them everybody that was going to vote yes, And I told them, I said, the mayor was going to be the deciding vote. Every single one of them on Wednesday when it came in, they looked at me and they said, you were right. And I told them, I said, you know, I said, that's not a hard one to figure out. I always tell them that we have 4 rubber stampers, and that's all the mayor needs to pass anything he wants. Mr. Huther did that, and he was proud to say it. And the sad part about it is the city hasn't changed one bit, not one bit. When it came down to 5 minutes on public input, it was the mayor that was the deciding vote not to go back to the 5 minutes, but to stay at the 3 minutes. Nothing has changed. You know, it's just like they ask me if anything has changed. And I tell them, no, nothing has changed. It's still the same. We just do it a little bit differently. At least Huther, he came straight out and he hit you right off because you knew what he was going after. Now it's just sort of, well, we're just going to work it in. It's pretty sad. But you know something? These people that I work out with, they ask me questions all the time now. What's going on at the city? What's going on with the city? I'm not afraid to tell them. So when I'm here, I talk to these people that are watching this. I could care what you guys think because people out here are starting to figure out that we have 4 people that are here for the citizens of Sioux Falls, and we have 4 people that are paid to sit here, and they got to work off their debt. So we either start working for the people, all of you, or we're going to have to find people to run against you.
Good evening. Hi, Stephen Ciano. Once again, I'll quote Rabbi Jesus, who said, "You'll know them by their fruits, and you can't serve 2 masters." And I'll say that again, directed to you, to this body, as my predecessor just was speaking of. Often, those like my father used to say, beware those who pat you on the back because they're looking for a soft spot to stick the knife. Yeah, you may come across with a pleasant demeanor. Some of you have. But I know you by your fruits, what you have done to me and to others in the city. And I stick with that. As my own situation has been, as I've shared with you, I've gone to the city attorneys in the past, and I've been told that it's their job to defend you people from if you're doing wrong. I say, no, it is not. It is the job of the city attorney to serve the public who pays their bill. There is a contract, and that contract is legally binding. You can check the law. If your city attorney tells you otherwise, we have one sitting right here, your head guy. Maybe he'll chime in. I'm disabled, and I was trying to get my health care needs met, as I could not through the VA because I've been blacklisted. I'm discriminated against, and I am disabled. So I went to your city attorney about that, and rather than defend me, this is the response I got: covering up for Falls Community Health's refusal to obtain the documentation, to obtain the financial backing, which would have brought about arguably proper medical care. This, if you continue to not have oversight over your own people and where your money is going to these people and hold them accountable, then you are all guilty of a threat to my life. I had money taken from me. I had no income for years. And I had to live in an abusive situation until I finally got an apartment of my own. Not due to your actions. You didn't help. You didn't help me or other disabled veterans that are afflicted by this VA system here and elsewhere, which is being covered up on a federal level as well, but I did get a couple...
Thanks, Stephen.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else this evening for public input? All right, clerk, we'll move to item.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
I asked a point of personal privilege earlier. I forgot that I needed to pull an item off the consent agenda. It's double listed at item 23, unfinished business, deferred from February 1st. It was item that's also been listed in item under 1 on consent agenda, and I wanted to point that out.
Okay.
So, Mr. Mayor,
I'm gonna, hold on, please. How do I deal with that? That's, I'm gonna ask Tom Greco. How do I handle that? Because we already voted on that.
I think it's fine just to recognize that it is pulled, that he pulled it right now because it's already been noticed on the regular agenda. It was deferred from the last meeting to be placed on the regular agenda. So I think it's good that Councilor Sale pointed it out.
Okay.
So the next item you'll cover is item 61. I do understand that you may have, there were a couple versions of the contracts and agreements. The correct version is online, but your papers in front of you may show 60 items. There are 61 items. 61 is the Woods Fuller contract for attorney agreement services in the amount of, I think, $75,000. So that'll be heard now, and then you'll go into unfinished business.
Okay, thank you, Tom. Appreciate it. Thank you, Councilor Sale. All right, we'll move on to that
Mr.
item.
Mayor, I'm confused. Where is item 61?
It's online. You have a old version that was printed out, but the correct version was posted online. So that.
I get
Gotcha.
That item. There was only one version ever online. There just happened to be 2 versions that came across email on Friday afternoon, and I think Clerk Jorgensen may have inadvertently printed out the previous one for your packet today, but the correct one's online.
so we don't have a copy of 61 that I pulled?
Woods Fuller is the
Right.
Woods Fuller item in the amount of $75,000.
And that's just been automatically pulled? Because I missed it too.
That's what Councilor Brecky pulled.
Pulled. I think you were out of the room when Councilor Brecky
Okay.
pulled that.
Okay.
So, thank you, Tom. So we will read item 61, which was pulled from the contracts now.
Water Reclamation Department, agreement for attorney services, wastewater treatment plant, Woods, Fuller, Schultz, and Smith, PC, $75,000.
Councilor Brecky.
I'm going to be leaving this discussion. I'm going to declare that I have a conflict because my daughter is an attorney over, an associate with Woods Fuller. Although she doesn't engage in any of the city work, I still think it creates an appearance of impropriety for me to act, and approve a price, setting of the fees for their services. And so when these things come up, I generally just recuse myself. So I'm going to leave myself for the discussion of the item.
Thank you, Councilor. All right, so that was the primary reason for pulling it was that. Is there any discussion on that item?
Well, and actually, Mr. Mayor, I had requested that it be pulled. So I don't know who was here to speak on that, and I did ask for that on Monday. Dave Bixler. So is there someone here to? Well, he's pointing to someone else.
Well, I can address it from a city attorney point of view.
I wanted to know, yeah, well, I mean, what is it? What's it about?
Oh, it's a retainer amount, $75,000 for continued work on the wastewater treatment.
And what specifically are we, because I know before, we paid, we were paying about $21,000 for the negotiating of the bonds for the revolving funds of the 20-some million that we had approved. So what specifically is this the same energy?
It was $24,000 on this particular contract for the wastewater. The bonding and Assistant City Attorney Paul Bankford's here on some of the specifics, but I can tell you that the initial work with Mr. Wiederick and Woods Fuller was the initial contract work related to the wastewater treatment plant. And so now as that's gone forward, of course, it's been approved. This will be the continuing attorney's fees that'll be paid on behalf of the city for the work toward that project.
So we're paying $75,000 to negotiate a contract?
No, we already negotiated the contract. Now it's for the contract or for the continued legal work. And Paul, if you can come up and explain it in better detail, but basically it's the ongoing work related to the construction of the of the wastewater treatment plant.
Well, and I guess specifically on that first round, when I pulled it last time, the issue that came up within the community is why are we paying a legal staff within our, and paying them well, within our city, and then we are hiring outside counsel to handle these things. So I asked the question, and Doug Hayek came in, and he said, I'm a specifically trained bond counsel, we have to have this. And then I was told that in Pierre, we're working with this, the department that handles the revolving loans for all the municipalities of South Dakota. I called the man in charge of that. And I said, how are we handling this? Are we doing it appropriately? He said, yes. He said, the municipalities generally, if it's a $20 million project, we pay, generally they charge 1%, the bond council, 1% of the project. And I said, just on a side note, when I asked, I said, do they ever use sales tax to help pay for these projects? And he said, yes, they do. Municipalities use sales tax, so we don't have to put this huge burden on the users of the toilet system, the fees to pay for this massive loan. So then when I see that we have $75,000 coming up, I'm thinking, well, is that for this bond thing? Are we paying 1% again? Is it a we don't have a $750 million loan. Explain, so what specifically is this going to be for?
Sure. And thank you, Councilor Staley. Paul Bingford on behalf of the City Attorney's Office. As you know, there's $160 million that is going to be spent on the wastewater projects that are within the City of Sioux Falls. The initial legal work that was done, and this was not by Doug Hayek, but by Jim Wiederick, is first trying to figure out the right project delivery method to utilize that would be best for the city. And by project delivery method, there are different ways that projects are done. Most of what we see in the City of Sioux Falls is a design, bid, build, okay? Where it's designed, it's bid out, and somebody builds the project, whether that be a street or a building or some other. As you know, we've used the construction manager at risk at least a couple of times on the Midco Aquatic Center, on the Event Center, and that is what is approved for this particular project as well. Progressive design build was one that was also looked at, but part of the initial determination is what is the best project delivery method for the city. Now going forward, and with the rest of these legal fees, there's a design contract and a CMAR contract that need to be prepared and negotiated. The reason that Jim Wiederick's contract is before you is Jim is one of the best contract lawyers in the state. He has a lot of experience, a lot of knowledge in these kind of cases. There's also, as you are going through this process and trying to figure out the best contracts for the city, there's even different contract types that you use. A lot of projects, including the project for the event center and the project for the aquatic center, we used AIA documents is what they're called. And those are projects that when they're architecture-driven contracts, AIA documents are often used and we're best in those circumstances. These projects at the wastewater treatment facility are more engineering driven. And so there is a different set of contracts that will be utilized for that, and these are called consensus docs. And there's a subscription for those, gets some information, but generally that is where that comes from, is there's a different kind of contracts that are used here. When you talk about the fact that we do have attorneys in our office, and that the attorneys in our office, why aren't they doing these contracts? Why aren't we working on these? Well, what you need to remember is, first of all, the $160 million that's being discussed here in these main contracts do require some expertise and some knowledge that Mr. Wiederick has. There's another $100 million worth of contracts when we talk about the total number of $260 million, and these other $100 million that are primarily design, bid, build, that our office will be looking at those contracts and involved in those contracts. But on this particular set, on the design contract and the CMAR contract, they're complex contracts, There is yearly funding appropriations. There is renovations that are occurring while keeping the wastewater plant operational. There's dealing with national firms in terms of these contracts, and we're trying to put the city in a position where we are best positioned for these contracts. The workload that we have in the city attorney's office, we do a lot of general day-to-day work that I know you don't see, but there's a lot of work that is being done by our attorneys. If we devoted an attorney or two to this particular contract, there's lots of other work that would not get done. Mr. Wiederick has an expertise and can do this work with more efficiencies than we could do internally in our office. You know, when I look at this, it's not any different than I have a general practice physician who's a great physician, and I'm very happy with him. But you know what? If there's a special need that you have, if you have a cardiac issue, if you have cancer, if you have a pulmonary issue, there are specialists that you would hire, and you wouldn't just go to your general practice doctor and say, hey, look, I need some surgery. Can you cut this out? I mean, you'd go to a surgeon. And so we try to look at that expertise. Same thing with my dentist. My dentist is very good, but sometimes you go to an orthodontist. Sometimes they send you to somebody who is going to do a root canal for you, that does those as a specialist. So this is no different than that work. You're getting lots of value out of the attorney's office that you have. These are specialized contracts where we believe the city is best off having the expertise of Jim Wiederick. There's reasons why professional contracts don't go to the lowest bidder. You look for a certain amount of expertise, a certain amount of knowledge in areas, and Jim Wiederick possesses that knowledge and experience, and that is why that contract is before you.
Well, I think what could be helpful moving forward, because we have these legal fees coming up, and I know I had a question back in the golf course contract that we had last winter, because we paid an outside firm anywhere from 25 to, it came back to us, I think it was at least 25 to 40,000. We paid them to negotiate the golf course contract. And I said the same thing then, why aren't our own attorneys doing that? So to me, it makes me think, well, maybe our city needs to hire a contract attorney to have on staff. I mean, for the 75,000 plus what we paid for the golf course guy, we could hire somebody for 130, 150,000. But I think what was going to be helpful moving ahead, because this whole scope of this is I'd like to have a breakdown of what the legal fees are going to be coming around the corner. And, I don't know exactly what what we're getting for 75. You're telling me to trust it's a good deal. I don't know that. So maybe we could get a breakdown for the whole package of what you think, and Director Cotter can do this, what we think we're going to be paying in legal fees. Because the citizens, as we come forward, we're building this new thing, but if we say, gee, we're going to be paying $2 million in legal fees, and I'm sorry to throw that figure out, because Mayor Ted Hagen won't like that I'm throwing something out, but we don't know. Is it $2 million at the end of the day? Is it going to be, 300,000? So maybe you could let us know that, so that I won't keep asking you about these legal fees as they come up, because they're kind of creeping here and there.
Stacy, you want to speak to that, please?
Yeah, Councilor Staley, $75,000 is our most educated guess as to what we're going to spend on this contract, so that's the number that's before you.
The total? I mean, for the whole wastewater?
A lot can happen in a $160 million construction project, but at this point, $75,000 is the number that we believe is our best guess as to what it would cost. I would also tell you, we do have a contracts attorney on staff, and I would also tell you that if you go to the website, you would see that we have listed a job listing for a contracts attorney. And so we are minding the store when it comes to the legal fees. We do not have the staffing capable to accomplish a project of this size and scope, in addition to the daily work that needs to be required. In addition, we do need a certain level of expertise to protect the city's best interests. And so therefore, we go out and find the best rate that we can at that level of expertise to construct this project, to protect the city's finances
I
and the city's
understand,
infrastructure.
but I think we're going to be seeing more legal fees coming as we've borrowed X amount, 20-some thousand, 20-some million. We had to pay bond counsel for that. As we borrow each piece of this, they're going to come back and have more legal contracts to approve. Okay, so that's not the end all for our legal fees.
Councilor Staley, let me correct something, okay? The bond counsel that you reference is statutorily required to be an attorney distinct from our office.
I understand that, but it's still the
City
total
Attorney has the
package.
floor right now. Can you not interrupt him and let him finish his thought, please? That would be very respectful. Thank you.
And so when the law requires that we have a separate attorney for our office to do the bond work, then we're going to hire that person. And with a retainer, it's not a guarantee of what the fees will be. And so hopefully, the $75,000 that's before you tonight would be an overestimation of the fees associated with this project. We cannot, however, guarantee that. Theoretically, it could be more than $75,000. We don't get to know that at this stage. And so at this point, we've put $75,000 out there with Mr. Wiederick and his expenses and based again on our staffing needs. And we have found historically that they have provided us value for that amount. And so or for their rate of fees. And so we're hopeful that it comes somewhere below that number.
And let me say, I don't appreciate, Mr. Mayor, your facial gestures. We are here to approve these expenditures. We are here to guarantee to the citizens that everything is as it should be. And if we are not expected to do our due diligence and ask questions occasionally, then why do we even have a council sitting here? So that's why we have the consent agenda. We are allowed to pull things that we have questions about. Maybe the other people don't have questions, but I do. And I talk to citizens who have questions, and I'm still asking that at the end of the day, we can get a ballpark figure of what how much of the $260 million is going to be utilized for legal fees. That would be my question. Whether they're the bond fees or a contract negotiation fees. Okay, that would be my question.
Do any other councilors have any input on this? Councilor Erickson?
Stacy, when we approved this project and the bonding already, was this amount included in that project? So it's already been approved, is that correct?
That I would ask Paul to address. Paul?
Or is it above and beyond what we've already approved?
These professional service, Mark Cotter with the Office of Public Works, these professional service fees are included in the scope of that larger project.
Which is already, to my point, which has already been passed by the city council as well as the bonding and the project. So I just want to make note of that. While it's great that we ask the questions, but I just want to make sure it's known that it's already included in there. But per the way that it works, we have to have it come through the consent on there.
And if I may, Mr. Mayor, I'm fine with those questions, and I'm happy to answer those questions here at the dais during the city council meetings. I'd also welcome those questions at a time. If you have additional questions, I'd be happy to answer those anytime during the week to ensure you get as thorough an answer as possible.
And I understand. May I reply?
You sure may.
I understand, but too often in this body, we're asking questions behind the scenes, and then the citizens don't get to hear the answers either. Because as I've said in the past, it's their money and it's their business. So I'm for doing more things and doing it out in the open versus less things. But thank you for the offer. And I also, just a personal note, our attorney, Stacy Koistra, has been very, very accommodating. And I wasn't meaning to put any kind of insults onto your abilities, okay?
I'd like to call for a vote on this, please.
Mr. Mayor? Point of order, don't we take public input or at least ask if there's anyone from the public? It's an agenda item now, so we would have that opportunity for the public.
Hold consent agenda items?
Yes.
Okay, is there anyone who wishes to speak to this item? Please come forward.
Scott Harrison, Sioux Falls. I have thought for a long time, not just today, but going all the way back to the Munson administration, that we spend so much money on outside counsel, not just on bonds, but also on all kinds of stuff. We do the same thing in the engineering department. We have tons of engineers, but we hire outside engineers. I think we could save ourselves a lot of money if we just had a purchasing agent in our attorney's department just to hire outside counsel instead of having a bunch of staff attorneys and then hiring it out all the time. But I'm up here to actually talk about the consent agenda because I'm extremely confused as to what's going on here. In the approval of contracts, which we're talking about here, there was a thing for item 23, the Sherman thing. And then now what's on the agenda is item number 23 by itself. So it's in two spots, which is extremely confusing to a citizen. And I don't even know if you can do that. And number two, when you click on this item in Sire, it is the only item on the entire agenda tonight that there is no supporting documents. So can somebody please explain to me what is item number 23? Just an explanation.
We're not at that item, sir. We're on item 61. So if you have public input related to item 61, we'll take that at this
No,
time.
it's 23.
We're not on 23. We're on 61.
We were already passed over it.
No, we're not. This is the item we're talking about. So I'll see you in 5 minutes.
As a citizen, this is maybe really my second council meeting, so I'm sorry about clapping and wanting to ask questions, but I just wanted to say I think one of the things that could have clarified it for the citizens too is the difference with the language between a retainer or the total cost.
Thank you. All right. Look for a motion on item 61, please.
Move to approve.
Second, Erickson.
Okay, move to approve by Councilor Kiley and seconded by Councilor Erickson. A vote on this, please.
Councilmember Sale,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Staley,
Yes.
Erickson,
Yes.
Kylie,
Yes.
Nitzert.
Yes.
All right, that is passed 7-0. Now we're on to the unfinished business items, clerk.
Unfinished business, item 23, deferred from the meeting of Tuesday, February 12th, 2019, final design and construction administration agreement, Sherman Park improvements, Indian Mound Road retaining wall near 18th Street and Kiwanis Avenue, $40,550. Item 24, transfer of 2018-19 retail malt beverage and South Dakota Farm wine license, including video lottery terminals, from Lucky Strike Casino Incorporated, 1033 North Minnesota Avenue, to MG Oil Company, Lucky Strike Casino, 1033 North Minnesota Avenue. Item 25, transfer of 2018-19 retail malt beverage and South Dakota Farm wine license from Mucro Management Incorporated, 825 North Weber Avenue, to Stenslin Enterprise Incorporated, Falls Overlook Cafe, 825 North Weber Avenue, pending final approval of the management agreement. Item 26, new 2019 retail wine and cider license for Falls Overlook Cafe, 825 North Weber Avenue, pending final approval of the management agreement. Item 27, new 2018-19 retail malt beverage and South Dakota Farm wine and new 2019 retail wine and cider licenses for Jackie's Restaurant, 3808 North Cliff Avenue, with conditional use permit 9850-2019 being approved on February 6, 2019. Item 28, special one-day malt beverage and special one-day wine licenses for Catering America to be operated at George Boom Funeral Home, 3408 East 10th Street, for a chamber mixer on April 9th, 2019.
All right, thank you. Now, point of clarification, there's no public input on unfinished business, but we are going to talk about item 23, which will hopefully answer some of your questions, sir, that you had on the previous item. So Don Carney is here from Parks and Rec to talk about 23 first.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Don Kearney. Since we were last discussing the Buffalo Wall project and the design for that replacement facility, we've had further conversation with Porter Williams, the sculptor on that project and artist, and obviously had further staff discussion about it as well. One of the things that we did here just this afternoon, we met again with Porter, talked him through our approach with this project. He will be actively involved in the design of the replacement wall, and we also want to reassure him that any and all considerations for how that wall might get constructed are on the table, and that's open-ended, and we'll work through that with Porter through the design. I would characterize Porter's mood following that conversation as feeling very satisfied with where we got to, and he had no further questions following that meeting we had with him this afternoon as well. I would also just share with you that we're excited about coming up with a good project that everybody can feel good about. Everybody's actively involved in it. And at the end of the day, we just want a good project that represents Sioux Falls very well. So with that, I'd be glad to answer any other questions.
Thanks, Don. This is all lumped in unfinished business, but I think I'd prefer to vote on this one item specifically. And do you have any questions, councilors, for Don while we have him here? I look for a motion on this
Move to
item.
approve item number 23.
Second.
Moved by Sale and seconded by Kylie. I was mistaken. We will take public input on this item if there is public input. So, sir, you can come forward now. And
I just want to make a quick comment. I watched TV all day one day, and I did see his input on the wall, and I am so delighted about this. And I'm so happy that he was able to get any man that studies stone walls all of his life should be listened to.
thank you.
Scott Ersman, Sioux Falls. I'm still rather confused why the citizens can't access this contract online. Everything on the agenda is accessible except this number 23. I cannot access it. I can't look at it. I can't see the contract. I have no idea why they're getting $40,000. That's a concern, my first concern. My second concern is I've known about this wall before it was even built. My good friend James Starkey was the one who did the drawing of the buffalo hunt. He's one of the artists that was involved with this wall. They had to make some design changes from what originally was supposed to happen. I know that there was some inferior rock used in that horse from what Porter really wanted to use at the time. This I know. I remember the wall being built. I think it would be a lot smarter just to go back in and fix the wall. It's a beautiful wall. It can be fixed, and it can be fixed for a lot less than what we're proposing. By the time we tear that wall down, build a whole new permanent structure, and put some kind of artwork on the wall, not only is it going to be uglier, as an artist, I'm going to tell you, it's going to be ugly. It's probably going to cost us $300,000 to $400,000. Why would we do that when we can just fix the wall? The problem was the horse had some inferior stones in it. And through water or something, it collapsed. The horse was the problem. The wall's not the problem. The wall's still standing there. It's been there for 16 years. It's the horse. Fix the horse. Fix that spot. It's real simple. You don't have to be an engineer to understand this. We played with rocks as kids. We get how this works. We are making mountains out of molehills. I hate to use that pun. We are making mountains out of molehills about this when it's so simple. Just fix the part of the wall. That's all you got to do. But we're hiring all these contractors, and I found out from listening to a Parks Board meeting that the engineering firm that got this contract, the kid that works there, Robbie, used to work for the city. Gee, I wonder how he got the contract. I mean, this is also a lot of back scratching and things going on here. I'm telling you, I was around when this wall was designed. I remember sitting with James and with Porter discussing how they were going to do this, and they fought a lot about it. Those two really fought it out of how this wall was going to work. It was some inferior stones in that horse. That's it. That's the problem, people. That's it. And nothing else. They're going to come up here and tell you all kinds of other garbage, but that's it. And I would like to see some kind of, not maybe fencing, but signage that says, please don't climb on this. This is artwork. And it was never lighted. And I remember that discussion too. Because I said to James, and to James at the time, I said, how are you going to see this at night? Oh, they're going to put lighting all along there, and it's going to light up. It's going to be really cool. That never happened either. So, really, this is really simple. Trash this. Don't go ahead with this, because it's just like taking 40 grand and putting it in a burn barrel. I see the city do this all the time. And just go back to the drawing board and see what it's going to cost to fix it. And please, put these contracts online so we can see them. Thank you.
Stephen Ciano. Scott made a point about the public not being privy to certain detail about this matter, and it seems to present that there is a pattern here as it's pertained to other things which I have brought up. Particularly what's on my mind is letters that I have written, which I wanted publicized. Maybe that's not that pertinent, but where there's a pattern of conduct which is antagonistic or contrary to the welfare of the public, I think it should be presented. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, there's a motion and a second on the floor on this. Any further discussion, council? Can I get a vote on this, please?
Councilmember Sale?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
That passed 7-0, and now we'll have Jamie come forward to talk about the other items. Thanks, Jamie.
Good evening, Jamie Palmer with licensing. I'm here to answer any questions that you may have on items 24 through 28.
Councilors, any questions for Jamie on those?
Approve, Erickson.
Second.
Moved to approve by Erickson, seconded by Sale. Any further discussion? A vote on those, please.
Councilmember Sale?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
All right, that passes 7-0. Next item, please.
Next item is 29, a second reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota rezoning property located east of the intersection of West Team Street and North Marion Road from the I-1 Light Industrial District and O Office District and C2 Commercial Neighborhood and Streetcar District to the RC Recreation District and S1 General Institutional District number 9849-2019, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. Planning Commission recommends approval 4-0.
Okay, Jason.
Good evening, Jason Bieber representing Planning and Development Services. This is an application and the owner is Jeff Kreider representing the Sioux Falls School District. It's located east of North Marion Road and north of North Career Avenue. It's roughly 47.5 acres in size. The purpose of this rezoning is they're looking at constructing the new Sioux Falls High School on the site.
Thanks, Jason. Anyone from the public here to speak on this item? Councilors, any questions for Jason on this one? Motions to make?
To approve.
Okay.
Second.
Move to approve by Kylie, seconded by Councilor Sale. Any discussion? A vote, please.
Councilmember Sale?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
All right, that passes 7-0. Item 30.
Item 30 is a second reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota rezoning property located southeast of the corner of East Chatham Street and Southwest Wind Avenue from the RS Single Family Residential Suburban District to the RD1 Townhome Duplex Residential District number 9844-2019, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. Planning Commission recommends approval 4-0.
The applicant and owner here is Joe Hayes. It's located just northeast of the roundabout at 69th and Southeastern. It's about 1.2 acres in size. The purpose of this rezoning is the applicant is looking at constructing additional twin homes along Chatham Street.
Okay, thanks, Jason. Anyone from the public like to speak on this item here? All right, councilors, you have questions for Jason? Motions to make?
Move to approve. Second.
Move to approve by Kylie, seconded by Sale. Any discussion? A vote, please.
Councilmember Sale?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson? Kylie?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
All right, that passes 7-0. Item 31.
Item 31 is a second reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota rezoning property located at the southeast corner of East 24th Street and South 7th Avenue from the RS Single Family Residential Suburban District to the S2 Institutional Campus PUD District number 9840-2019, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. Planning Commission recommends approval 4-0.
The applicant here is Damian Grable. The owner is Vera McKinnon Hospital. It's located at the southeast corner of East 24th Street and South 7th Avenue. It's roughly 1 acre in size. The purpose of this rezoning is Vera McKinnon is looking at constructing a new Presentation Sisters house on these, I believe, 8 lots. This house will include separate sleeping rooms, some common area, and also meeting space. There will also be a garage for the sisters to park in, as well as some visitor parking along 7th Street. They will be required that level B buffer yard along that south property line to buffer this use from the existing single-family residential houses. And they are proposing to vacate a portion of the alley, the north portion. The alley will remain open from 26th Street to roughly about 27th Street, and then it will be redirected east over to 8th Avenue. So those existing houses that currently back up to that alley and access it will still have access to the existing alley.
All right, thanks, Jason. Anyone from the public here to speak on this item tonight? Please come forward. Good evening.
Good evening.
Pull those down a little. There you go.
How's that?
Better.
I'm Sister Lucille Welbig. I'm the leadership team of the Presentation Sisters in Aberdeen, South Dakota, and I live here in Sioux Falls. Thank you for the opportunity, Mayor and council members, to present to you tonight. It's the Presentation Sisters that are building this site. It's not a Vera McKinnon building this site. And I have 4 points to talk about on behalf of the Presentation Sisters. In discernment and dialogue for over 2 years in planning for our future as Presentation Sisters, we affirm the sisters living in Sioux Falls to continue to live there and age in place, remaining close to families and close relationships they've developed from the ministries that they've had there for a number of years, and continue the presentation presence here in Sioux Falls. Currently, there are 15 sisters living here in Sioux Falls and in various areas in Sioux Falls. Really realizing a call to closer community life and member well-being as we get older, we decided to build a new residence for us called the Presentation Center. And having a core value of doing nothing alone, we reached out to partner with Vera McKinnon to build a new site close to medical care and back to our roots of over 100 years in the McKinnon Park area through our ministry at McKinnon Hospital and St. Mary's School. For us, it's like coming back home to our roots in Sioux Falls. Secondly, the sisters are very sensitive and caring about displacing the people in the houses, 4 houses on the site. In choosing our site, we did look at what would be the least disruptive to the tenants already living there. And working in partnership with Vera McKinnon, those affected will be taken care of, and Tom Bosch can speak more about that if you have further questions. And thirdly, as a result of the sisters moving into this new residence, a 5-bedroom house across the street on 7th Avenue and a 5-apartment building down the street on 21st Street will become available for future housing needs of others in the area. And lastly, the sisters, we're not building this for our own future only. We'll probably be there for 10 years or so. We don't know the number. But when we no longer have a need for this residence, Vera McKinnon will be able to use these apartments, these 20 apartments, for possible temporary housing for students, employees, or doctors. So this structure that we propose to build today will come full circle again when McKinnon is able to use it when we're finished using it. So thank you for the time.
Thank you, sister. Anyone else like to speak on this item tonight? Gotta raise
Good
those up.
evening.
There you go.
Tom Bosch, little height difference there with the sister, so with it. Tom Bosch, Vice President of Hospitality at Vera McKinnon. So, Mr. Mayor, City Council, thank you so much for this opportunity again to consider our request. I think Sister really said it all. I appreciate the conversation that Dave and we had with you all yesterday. Thank you, Councilor Brecky, for engaging us and asking us and inviting us to share at the informational meeting. My comments really are, we just ask for your support here, and I would be more than happy to, I know there might be others to speak, but more than happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thanks, Tom. We'll get through public input, and then if they want to call you up for questions, we'll take you up on that. Please come forward, please.
Scott Ersman, Sioux Falls. Okay, we know this is a done deal, and there's probably no going back on this. It's too late. But I've told you a few years ago, or 2 years ago, I attended the planning class or whatever, citizens planning thing. And I only went to the first meeting because I learned everything I needed to know from the first meeting. When towards the end, during Q&A, a lady kept asking the planning department people, well, how can Sanford take all these neighborhoods? How can they keep taking these houses down? And they kind of did a little Mexican hat dance trying to explain how that all works. And they finally just admitted they got the money. They got the money to buy all these houses, so they get to bulldoze them all. So I'm not up here to say anything about this project. Like I said, it's a done deal. We know that. But this city council and this city needs to get on a strategic plan immediately. Not in a couple of months, not in a couple of years. Right now, and how we're going to save our core neighborhoods. I live in a core neighborhood. I love it. There is no other place I'd rather live. But I see all this commercial creep constantly, and it's ruining our neighborhoods, our small neighborhoods. You can't build a house for under $200,000 in this town, a new house. It's virtually impossible. These houses you can buy between $110,000, $120,000, $170,000, around that range. When you get rid of them, they're gone. They're not coming back. In fact, the last time we had a house removal, what was it, for Lifescape, they went to Lenox, South Dakota. I don't think a lot of people knew that. So we need to get on a plan right now. This needs to end. And I understand that the hospitals provide jobs. Yahoo. There's also a lot of other businesses that provide jobs too. In fact, the #1 employer in this town is small business. Geez, what a concept. They actually employ around, I think I did the math, around 85% of employees work for small businesses in Sioux Falls. So, when we want to talk about jobs, we want to talk about core neighborhoods, we got to stop this. This just needs to end. Building parking lots, tearing down affordable houses, destroying our core is not good. It just isn't. And I've been seeing this going on for years. I approached Kenny Anderson 10 years ago about this. I said, Kenny, we need a program to start revitalizing these neighborhoods or we're going to lose them. Well, that's a great idea, Scott. Nothing has been done. 10 years. Nothing. And now we're here. It's too late. I'm telling you that. The apartment building is going to get built. We all know that. We need to do something. It's enough chatter and talking about it. Enough giving $500,000 TIFs, $2 million TIFs to $1 million condo buildings and apartment buildings that are $1,200 a month rent. We need to start using that money to rebuild our core. Let's face it, wages aren't great in Sioux Falls. Newswatch just put a story out. 70% of South Dakotans make under $40,000 a year. That's not a lot of money. They can't afford brand new $300,000 homes. They get shoved into crappy apartments or something else, or trailer parks or whatever you want to say. We are going to lose so many people if we don't get under control on this. And the infrastructure is failing too. You know, it's not just about potholes and signs getting ripped down. It doesn't have to do just with the homes. It has to do with the streets being maintained and the lights being maintained and the parks in the neighborhoods being maintained. And all that stuff ties in together. We need to put a foot down with institutions and say thank you for providing jobs, but I'm going to tell you that's not good enough. Everybody counts in this community. Everybody. Not just Avera and Sanford and Lloyd because they have money. Everybody counts. And as I said, 85% of employers are small business in this town. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to say, Mayor, my name is Cher Rosaday Sharon, Council. I guess that's what you do. First of all, I just want to say to address that issue and to the presentation sisters, I just first of all want to say thank you.
You need to face the front, please.
And thank you. I believe this is a good project. And identifying it from my phone, it appears as if it's across the street from the Ronald McDonald House between 7th and 8th. And it also appears as if, as I can understand from Scott's perspective, a fine line between our core neighborhoods. I believe that from my understanding of this, it is a very good project, and I understand that I think it would be awesome because the Presentation Sisters have been in the McKinnon Park area for quite some time, and I want to say thank you to them and thank you for their service as my daughter's at St. Mary. And most importantly, I think that the only question I have is I don't understand why at a certain point there would be any discontinuation of the use from the Presentation Sisters and it would be turned over to Avera.
Thank you. Good evening.
Hi, Stephen Ciano. I have seen beauty destroyed. There was a building near me I thought was quite attractive, and many of you may have passed by it, 26th and Bonson. When it came before this body, it was not said that the building, when it was going to be converted into a multi-dwelling, was going to be razed. It was going to be destroyed. It looked like a good, solid building, and it had certain aesthetic beauty to it, and there is that to be considered. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tim Stanga, don't have a problem with this project, but it all comes down to affordable housing. We were talking about can we move houses? If you really actually look at moving a house, first you got to find a lot. Lots are anywhere from 50 to 80,000. You might be lucky to find one inside a neighborhood for 30 or 40. Then you got to do water, sewer. Got to pour the basement. By the time you get that done, that $100,000 house you're moving is already up to $150,000. So we all know that's not going to happen. But the problem is, and I suggested this 2-3 years ago, that if you want to take a house down, then you give back to the community. Not only, granted, you're going to say they're giving back because they're creating jobs, but the problem is you got to give back to the community on where if you're going to tear down a house and you got to give so much of that house to affordable housing. So that way that they can put into building an affordable house, or they can help people build affordable housing. I don't know how many houses that Vera McKinnon has bulldozed or got rid of. The same thing with Sanford. But the problem is if you had to put a certain percentage of what that house was worth into affordable housing, then we'd be able to build affordable housing. Right now, we're losing money on affordable housing. When we build a house that people are going to move into, we lose money. We went with a government house over by my house from the penitentiary. After it was moved and put on the basement, and a garage was added, it was almost $170,000. Is that affordable? Yeah, to some people it is. But for some people it's not. But I just look at it as all the houses that we have bulldozed down and got rid of, has the citizens got anything really out of it? Everything that is bulldozed down is taken off the tax roll. So it's not just a 1-year deal. It's not a 2-year deal. It's a lifetime deal. Every time you bulldoze a house down, the citizens lose that revenue. And what I'd like to do is be able to see somehow that we can put back into our community on the houses that are being torn down. Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Sioux Falls. So, you know, Avera, was, in my opinion, was rude at the presentation to Teresa Staley. I noticed if you hear it in the video. All about their people and their staff. Nothing about regular tenants in the neighborhood. It's all about their people and their staff and their workers. The rich people versus the poor people. This is what this is about. I don't care what people say. Look at these homes that Teresa has taken pictures of. When you are a nun, you take a vow of poverty. Take a vow of poverty to live in poverty. These sisters should know this. Having to move people out of these homes and bulldozer them down to make it convenient for their people. Go back on that video from the informational meeting. It's ridiculous and bizarre. So all of these people are probably average working people. It looks like these houses are not for the rich people. So eventually all these houses are going to go, and it's all going to be commercial, and it's all going to be for the rich people. And then where is your middle class people supposed to live? Now, I know that some people have rental houses here, and they rent them out to people for 6 months, 8 months that are travel nurses and travel people. I know that there's a landlord that does that. They can use those sources as well. There's landlords that will rent to people that are coming here from Avera out of state for 6 months or 8 months to live fully furnished houses, very nice houses. Why should we have to push out these middle class people for the rich? Why? Why is it? And when people say follow the money in Sioux Falls, you have to believe the slogan here: follow the money, because the rich is going to take it all. And I've been saying this for years about the rich, pushing them away, letting the poor districts just melt away, and let affordable housing come in, and let's put townhouses home that are $1,500 and $2,000 a month of rent. Have y'all noticed the income that our people are making here in Sioux Falls? Not the rich people, the middle class people, $10 to $15 an hour. These people right here, I don't know how much is their income, but it's sure it's not 6 digits. To get pushed out of their neighborhood for commercial property is pathetic. I'm sorry if I disrespected the nuns, but it's the truth. You take vows when you become a nun here.
All right, counselors, do you have any questions for our staff on this? All right.
Move approval, Erickson.
Okay, move to approve by Erickson. Do I have a second? Okay. Seconded by Kylie. Discussion, council. Counselor Staley.
I have a little presentation. I want to thank our staff member, Jim David, for assisting me with putting this. He didn't put the content into it, but he helped with the graphics. First of all, let me say, before I start in on this, a word about the presentation nuns. I have had dear friends who are presentation nuns. Sister Delray Tiemann, who is deceased, was my spiritual director for many years. Beloved woman. I got my first teaching job at St. Mary's from the presentation nuns. So this is, my energy here has nothing to do with the nuns, nor does it have anything to do, as I said earlier at our informational, it has nothing to do with Avera and the mission that they have. And I'm certainly not wanting to impact the profitability of your institution by my concerns here that I will talk about in a minute. So I wanted to state that out in the open. I have been very concerned vocally these last weeks about the issue of neighborhoods. And so the first thing I wanted to talk about, affordable housing crisis. I take notes during the meetings and keep track of the things that we've talked about. And it was so neat because I ran across the folder that I kept from August 21st, the CIP hearing. Les Kinstead, he was in charge of our housing, and has he retired yet, Counselor Sill? Yeah, he's retired. But he came in, he was telling us about how the city's trying to help with the affordable housing issue, and the goal is to increase affordable housing by stabilizing the supply of safe and affordable homes. But what was troubling, and this had been presented to us in past years as well, is that the city is taking a blighted home and destroying it, leveling it, and then rebuilding it. And so he was telling us about the house that city built for $210,000, and they sold it for $169,000. And I said, wow, Les, that just doesn't really make sense. And at the time, our mayor had just gotten elected, and I said, gee, I think we need to be doing a better job of partnering up with the Habitat for Humanity, so we're not wasting $40,000 of our tax dollars to create one little affordable house for someone. I wanted to say that I appreciate Avera's effort to preserve our core. And you have been working, Avera, Tom Bosch. You have done this. Look at, they got the Avera Behavioral Health Center out south of town, the Heart Hospital, Avera on Louise, the Avera ER on Marion. Very, very wonderful things, because they're taking ground that has not had anything on it, and they're putting their new expansions there. Makes perfect sense. Another example, Prince of Peace Retirement Home. I mean, we've got assisted living, we've got apartments for able-bodied people, we've got a hospice area, all sorts of things on that southeast part of town. We haven't had to displace anybody from their neighborhoods to do these things. Sanford's doing the same thing with their corporate headquarters if you drive out on the interstate out there. So we're growing, and if we want to work to preserve our inner core, to me, this is the discussion and the energy that we need to be embracing. Residential areas at risk. This is the issue, in my opinion. In the last 20 years, we have seen the disappearance of hundreds of homes in core neighborhoods. The issue of Avera and their footprint in their south of their campus has resulted in the loss. They gave an estimate today. Mike Cooper, our planning director, said he thinks it's in the area of 150 homes. We don't know for sure because there is no record of it. These homes that have disappeared, if you ever had a chance to drive through the McKinnon Hospital area through the years, they were lovely homes, and people lived there. There was a chiropractor there. I mean, I taught students whose parents raised their children there. They were character homes. They were affordable homes, and there's still some homes left there, perfect for first-time home buyers, seniors who want to downsize. They're affordable. Growth is good, but it is time to discuss neighborhood preservation. Now, I spent some time driving around, and in this area, this is the area we're talking about. It's the south part of the Avera McKinnon campus. These are examples of homes at risk, and we're going to just show you. Look at these homes. Go ahead, Jim. Some are smaller, some are story and a half. They're cute little homes. Here we go. I think Avera, Sister Del Rey used to have her little thing in that pink house there. She lived there. A nun was living there. So we have these homes. Been there for a long time. I don't have all the homes. My understanding is the 99% of these are rentals. Either they're owned by Avera or they're owned by another landlord who I didn't get the name of that person. But they've been bought up. Now, we're going to be talking tonight about a rezone. And I just wanted to put a face with the properties. Okay, here's one of the properties. Over to the left is another one. This one, fireplace, one of the homes that will be taken out, that's another one. And then here's the fourth one. So there'll be 4 homes removed. And I really have a concern about this. Tools for neighborhood preservation. Community development funds, pouring more money into that so we can encourage people in these homes to take care of them. I'd like to get homeowners in these homes. Now, I asked Tom Bosch last week, and Sister Mary Thomas was here, and I said, do you have any plans to ever sell these homes? I don't think they're ever going to go on the market again. So forever, we're going to take a person's ability to have that as their own away. Neighborhood watch associations, putting more of those things into play for these core neighborhoods. Beautification projects, the boulevard gardens, and again, transitioning rentals into owner-occupied homes. It would be, to me, would really make sense. Another thing that was brought up by one of our constituents here, but we are going to be losing a tax base as well. I had said to the nuns early on when this first came up, I called some of my sister friends, and I said, gee, you know, I understand that you need a place to live. Wouldn't it be lovely if you could build your facility on your southeast campus over by the Prince of Peace? And then we could preserve these homes right where they're at now. My quote here is, let's work to preserve and renovate our existing affordable homes. And I think it's a conversation with Avera. I think it's a conversation we're going to have with Sanford and with any of these institutions and these businesses that want to expand into these residential areas. So once again, let me just say one more time, this has nothing to do with my respect for the presentation nuns. Just so you understand that. It has everything to do with my love of neighborhoods and protecting the integrity of these homes.
Okay. Thank you, Counselor. Other discussion amongst the council on this item? I have a motion and a second. See, Counselor Brecky. Go ahead, Counselor Brecky.
I was just going to say a few words. We did hear today, those of you in the audience or watching at home might not know this, but at our informational reading, we did receive a full briefing of the long-range plans of McKinnon, of Avera McKinnon. And the reason I asked them to come to that informational meeting is because I do think that it is time that we start talking about the balance issue, because for so many years, we've just accommodated the growth of our institutions within our core area. But that was a period in our history where affordable housing wasn't an issue. And also these institutions actually increase the property values of the houses around them and actually provide support systems for their own businesses. So those are housing their employees. And I think they would agree with me that we do have, it's a delicate balance that we want to keep, because we don't want to harm these incredible neighborhoods that we've managed to create over the years by allowing the expansion. So when I talked to them, I was pleased, and I was pleased when they pointed it out today, that they are already talking about issues like essential services, what services need to be absolutely on the campus and what don't. They're talking about satellite operations and have already done several satellite operations. I raised the issue, taller buildings. Are you talking about taller buildings and taller parking ramps and those kinds of things, building up, not out, and those kinds of things? And they are, and they're talking about those things with the city. And we were informed today that the city has the intent of actually putting together an internal core study group that will actually start to focus on these issues. So it's an awareness issue, and I think we're becoming aware. And in the awareness, we're coming to an agreement that a balance needs to be struck. How big is too big for our core, and we don't want to, again, ruin the beautiful thing that we've created. Tonight I will be voting for this because for me, just as an old fan of transitional zoning, it fits right in there. You have the Ronald McDonald House across the street. You've got the Walsh Hospice Center there. So to have the nuns come home, return to the campus, for me is very poignant, very poetic to have them come back, and I welcome them back. And I think that for this particular area, there's just the 4 houses, as hard as it is, because I've said earlier today, in the almost 9-10 months I've been here, I've just kind of done a mental tick as we've been doing these projects, and we've lost 24 houses. And that is, however, why this discussion is going on tonight, is because we're starting to become aware that we really have to pay more attention to this, because they don't come back. So I appreciate this project. I think it's going to fit well in the neighborhood, and I also appreciate the dialogue, which I think we need to have more of in the future. So thank you for those presenters, and I will be supporting this tonight.
Councilor Erickson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councilor Brecky. I couldn't agree more with finding that balance. Affordable housing has and always will be an issue forever. It won't be something that we can solve, whether it's high interest rates or things changing with neighborhoods and institutions growing and just the way people live and the American dream changing. Oftentimes we see the way people live now is different. When I was growing up and always wanted to have a house with a yard, that's different. I have nieces and nephews that don't want any business of that, and that's just the difference in some of this. Earlier, we learned today the long-range plan for Avera, and they recognize that with those conversations from the city that they are landlocked at this current campus. And so because of that, they have been growing outside to other institutions, but it's been identified 15, 20 years ago that this would be a plan of growth. They can't cross over that cliff, they can't cross over 26 because of the cemetery is there, and they can't cross over 7th because it's a historical area. They are essentially landlocked into that area. And we did have a great conversation discussing that further. The other thing that I want to point out is that this is about private property rights. No one is holding a gun to someone's head saying, you have to sell this house to fill in the blank, whoever it is. I don't care if it's USF, I don't care if it's Augustana, Sanford, or Avera. No one is forcing anyone to sell their home. It is a transaction between that entity and that personal private property owner. And for me, seeing government getting involved in that is really dangerous. When government comes in and tells me I can't sell my home because da-da-da-da-da, we've got a real big problem with that. I don't want government telling me what I can and can't do with my private property when it comes to selling that home. And so while some of these folks I've met along the way that have sold the homes in those areas, they did it willingly. They did it because they were ready to either transition into maybe long-term care or other areas, and that's their right. While for me, I would love to see the neighborhoods preserved for that area, but you also have to recognize no one is forcing anyone to sell those homes, and I think that's really important for this. I think this is going to be a great addition. I'm excited for what you offer to the sisters. I'm excited that the sisters have access to great healthcare system and that they'll be closer together in that community as well as their family. So for that, I will be supporting this. I also understand that this has changed a little bit over time and that you were able to relocate that alley versus doing some of the other things. That's the work that needs to take place through that. So I thank you for meeting with those few neighbors that did have concerns, finding that compromise and making those changes to make this as least impactful for that change for them. So for those reasons, I will be supporting this.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Kiley.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Again, I first want to thank the presentation sisters for your contributions to the community of Sioux Falls, your longtime contributions to the community of Sioux Falls. In fact, this fine medical facility that we have here in central Sioux Falls may not be located if it were not for your efforts. So thank you very much. I mean, there's been many benefits to the community, and when I look at the houses that Councilor Stately presented, the story-and-a-half houses are identical to the home that I grew up in the South Sioux area. And so it is difficult to see homes of that type move on, go away. But you have to weigh the benefits of what's going in and versus what we're losing. And I think the benefits to the community far outweigh the loss of the homes. And in this case, just to be clear, all the homes that we saw pictured in Councilor Staley's report are not at risk in this project. I believe was it 4 homes at this point in time? So just wanted to be very clear on that. And I would admit that maybe some of those other homes with other projects in the future may be at risk of going away. But again, we have to weigh the benefits to the community, and I think the benefits far outweigh the loss of the homes. You know, and the presentation sisters are members of our community. Just like the individuals that lived in those homes were members of our community too. And I think we have a responsibility to see to it. Yes, Mr. Erishman, play your violin if you'd like. That is so disrespectful, sir. Terrible.
Oh, you've never disrespected me.
You know what? Scott, can you please not speak to the dais unless it's for public input? Thank you.
They're members of this community. The presentation sisters are members of this community, just like everybody else, and we have a responsibility to them too. And I do agree with Councilor Erickson that this is about property rights. The individuals had the right to sell their homes to Avera McKinnon, and Avera McKinnon has the right to develop their property as they see fit to continue their mission. So I too will be supporting this and look forward to the project. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Staley? Actually, I'm going to go to Councilor Neitzer. He hasn't chimed in on this yet first, and then I'll come back to you, Councilor Staley. Councilor Neitzer.
Thanks. I'll try to keep this short because most of my points were reiterated or said by the last three speakers. Very good points. This is really simple when you look at it logically. And I do want to say, other communities, they do impact fees. We could look into that. That's something it's worth a consideration. You could pay into an affordable housing fund. That is done. It's a worthy discussion. But really, when I look at this, it's pretty simple. I'm going to end up with more units, living units, than what is there now. The sisters predominantly live in the neighborhood. They'll move into these units. We have more units. Frees up units in another area in the neighborhood that will be opened up. That's a net benefit. We get a little bit more density here. And in fact, I think it would be a worthwhile thing to do, not telling the institution what to do, but I would assume that there could be a demand at some point for some sort of a multi-unit or multi-family complex with as many traveling nurses and doctors and everything else. I think it'd be incredible if they could live essentially, and I know they do already in rental housing that's nearby, but maybe there's some sort of a complex that could be on their facilities where you could literally walk across the street to work. That would be pretty incredible, and that would help everybody. So it's tough with affordable housing, but you're talking about more density here and more living units than you had before, and so it seems very simple. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Staley, did you have further comments?
Yeah, well, I guess, of course, we're not dealing with property rights here tonight. We're dealing with the rezone. You're only in front of us because we were going to rezone the land. And just like when we have people coming forth that want to build a parking lot, it has to be rezoned. You just can't take a residential area. Jason and I had a great conversation about this. I can't just buy a half a block of homes and decide to make a parking lot out of it. There are certain mandates that you have to come before the council. So we aren't allowed to just do anything we want to with our property. I do think that I'm glad we've had the conversation. I think that there are people who live in that area who would live on the west side of 7th Avenue who probably weren't aware that all of their neighbors to the east were rental properties, or it sounds like a big 99% of them. I don't think that the people in that area on the boulevard going over to the McKinnon Park area, I don't think they're aware that that whole area is kind of turning into an institutional campus, and that it's sounding like we may, if we think it's great to have the density of the nuns living there, and it's good that, okay, they're nuns, that's good, we have a bunch, we're making a 20-unit thing for the nuns, but really, you could have a multi-housing facility there. We could put 3 groups of apartment buildings there. The sky's the limit. So what we heard today was that we heard Avera saying to us that they wanted to keep those homes for a while for people to be living in, that's a reassuring thing for the people in the residences. But it's a bigger conversation about, what does Sanford have planned? What's going on with the area from 18th Street to 22nd Street? How far is this going to be moving? And I think we have a right to know that as a community. That's called long-range planning. So it's not just a have at it, anybody can do anything they want to in this real estate business. So anyway, it is a land use issue that we're dealing with today.
Thank you. Any other input on this? Councilor Erickson?
I'll just say I think that my point was missed, that the property rights is of those homeowners to choose to sell. That was the point I was making. When I talk about property rights, it is about that person, whoever it is. Joe Blow lives at this house and chooses to sell to Avera, OI, USF, whomever. That is their right. That was my point on the property rights. From that point, obviously, we have to walk through the process to rezone, talk about zoning, talk about vacations, whatever those things might be. But my whole point is no one is forcing anyone to sell a home they don't choose to sell. Excuse me.
I'm going to call for a vote on this item, please.
Councilmember Sale?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
No.
Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
All right, that passes 6-1. Next item, please.
Item 32 is a second reading. An ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota rezoning property located at the southeast corner of West 2nd Street and North Kiwanis Avenue from the RD1 Twin Home Duplex Residential Suburban District to the O Office District number 9701, 2018, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. Planning Commission recommends approval 4-0.
The applicant here is Rose Grant. The owners are Grenada LLC and Jeffrey Milo. It's located at the southeast corner of 3rd Street and 2nd Street and North Kiwanis Avenue. It's about 0.67 acres in size. The purpose of this rezoning is the applicant is looking at doing kind of a two-phase approach. The first one would be a 4-stall van storage building for their wheelchair express vans. And then they're looking at constructing phase 2 on the south property. That would be an office and an employee area for their existing employees for Wheelchair Express.
Thanks, Jason. Anyone from the public wish to speak on this item tonight? Councilors, do you have any questions for Jason on this one? Look for a motion on this item.
Move to approve, Erickson.
Second, Nitzert.
All right, move to approve by Erickson, seconded by Nitzert. Any discussion? Vote on this, please.
Councilmember Sale?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
All right, that passes 7-0. Item 33.
Item 33 is a second reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota rezoning property located northeast of the corner of West Pine Ridge Drive and North Marion Road from the I-1 Light Industrial District and O Office District to the LW Live Work District number 9852, 2019, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. Planning Commission recommends approval 4-0.
The applicant and owner here is Merrill Bergeson. It's located just north of the new Jefferson High School that we discussed earlier tonight. It's roughly 13.4 acres in size. The purpose of this rezoning is the applicant is looking at constructing a future office or multifamily residential development there.
Thanks, Jason. Anyone from the public wish to speak on this item tonight? Councilors, do you have questions for Jason? Look for a motion on this.
Move to approve, Sale.
All right.
Second,
Move
Kylie.
to approve by Sale, seconded by Kylie. Any further discussion? Vote on this, please.
Councilmember Sale?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
All right, that passes 7-0. Item 34.
Item 34 is a first reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota approving the naming of the hospitality area at Levitt Shell, Sioux Falls in Falls Park West. Recommendation set a date of hearing for Tuesday, March 12, 2019.
Hi, Jackie.
Hi. Good evening. Jackie Nelson, Administrative Manager with Parks and Recreation. So the naming application before you is a request from the Friends of the Levitt Shell, Sioux Falls. As a reminder, the Levitt Shell is a partnership between the National Levitt Foundation, the Friends of the Levitt Shell Sioux Falls, and the City of Sioux Falls. Per the agreement, the Friends of the Levitt Shell Sioux Falls have the authorization to accept and utilize gifts, donations, and contributions within the Levitt Shell's geographical area to benefit the Levitt Shell and the free concert series, including naming rights. The attached map outlines the approved geographical area to include the hospitality area being proposed today. The hospitality area is a concrete pad located near the front of the lawn towards the stage. The naming application I present before you tonight is, as I said, between the Friends of Levitt Shell Sioux Falls and Howalt McDowell A. Marsh McClellan Agency. Approval of this naming application would allow for sponsorship and renaming of the Levitt Shell hospitality area to Howalt McDowell A. Marsh McLennan Agency Hospitality Area. This would be a 5-year agreement beginning June 1st of 2019 and ending September 30th, 2024. It includes a one-time payment in the amount of $25,000. The agreement was unanimously approved by the Parks and Recreation Board on February 20th. As part of the sponsorship, a sign acknowledging the partnership would be placed within the hospitality area concrete deck or landscaping. Sign details are still being finalized. However, the sign will be no larger than 24 by 24 inches and will be in compliance with the National Levitt Foundation, City of Sioux Falls, and the Friends of Levitt Shell Sioux Falls signage requirements and regulations. A sample of what the potential sign could look like is within the slide you're viewing right now. And with that, I'd like to say Nancy Helverson, Executive Director of the Levitt Shell, is here with me tonight as well, and we'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Jackie. Yep. Anyone from the public here to speak on this item tonight?
Scott Harrisman, Sioux Falls. One question I'd like council to ask, because I've been wondering this since I saw the contract on this and heard them talk about it in the Parks Board meeting, is this going to be an exclusive deck for those who are the sponsors and nobody else will be able to go up there? In other words, is this going to be like a private patio space? I don't know. I'm curious about that. You know, I'm very excited about the Levitt coming, very excited. If you read about the Levitt across the country and the things they do, they're wonderful. And, but I'm getting more and more disenfranchised by, we're going down the Sioux Falls road with this now, where we're gonna get all these sponsorships and have signs hanging everywhere. And I also did a lot of research on the other Levitts, and half of them allow people to bring their own alcohol. The other half sell on site, and there's only one that sells no alcohol, and that's because it's in a bad neighborhood. So I think we need to explore that too. One of the great things about the Levitt is it's a free concert. So why should we have to spend some more money when we get there? The taxpayers of Sioux Falls already put a lot of money into this. We're going to be putting money into it every year with maintenance. We're paying for it through our taxes. So why should I have to show up and have to buy a beer from a vendor when I can just bring my own beer down there? Doesn't make any sense. And somebody said, what's a security issue? Well, that's easily taken care of. You have a designated area. You saw the map. You saw how big the Levitt is. You have a designated area. If you want to bring your own beer, you gotta stay in this area. You gotta get an armband. Fix. Easy fix. You don't have to worry about people jumping in the river, falling in the river, because I heard that one. You know, someone's worried about someone falling in the river, but they're going to be selling alcohol there, so that doesn't seem to be a concern. So we really need to explore allowing people to bring coolers, bring their own food, bring their own beer, have a good time, not have private hospitality decks so that people can look down upon the rest of us poor slobs that are there for free. You know, so just ask the question, you know, is this a private hospitality deck, or is this something that everyone will be able to get up there and have fun on? Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else here to speak on this item tonight? All right. I'm going to look for a motion. Can we get a motion first?
I will move to approve, Neitzer.
Okay.
Second, Brecky.
Move to approve Neitzer and seconded by Brecky. Councilor discussion or questions? Councilor Neitzer.
Yeah, I did have a question for Jackie, and I think it's going to address Scott's question, which was just, it's a concrete pad, but what would I find in a hospitality area? A kiosk, a welcome, I mean, what's there?
So right now, it's just the concrete pad. So Holt McDowell would have the sponsorship with the name and a plaque, but then different entities would be able to work with Nancy, and I'm not sure, Nancy, you might be able to speak as to what her thoughts are with the concrete pad, but different entities would be able to then reserve that space, use that space, bring in caterers for a party. Let's say you want to bring in 100 people for a work party. You'd be able to then serve food, serve drinks for your event within that hospitality pad. So right now it's fairly open, and we're looking at different opportunities for it. So Nancy, I don't know if you want to speak to that in terms of what you're thinking.
Thanks, Jackie.
Hi, Nancy Halverson, Executive Director of Levitt at the Falls. The pad is really flat. It's on the same ground surface. It's not raised. There's no fence around it. Just like everything else in the Levitt, it is open to the public. It is a space where a sponsor, if they wanted to have an information table, could have it set up. Maybe they have a little tent there and they can invite their own guests to come over and receive information, but it's certainly not closed or limited.
So if I remember right, you may have different sponsors for different nights, is that correct? So it could be like, if I'm a sponsor for a particular night and I'm sponsoring the concert, maybe I have a table and I have literature or trinkets I'm going to hand out or
For your
whatever?
guests or anything like that. Yeah.
Sure.
And you could have it be something that you're giving away to the whole public, or it might be something that if you just have your employees that night, they come and grab their bottled water there, or whatever it might be.
Okay, great, thanks.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Starr.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I guess it's more for the Parks Department. I'm sorry, Nancy. Yep.
We're a good team.
That's right. And it'll probably be your question anyway by the time I'm done babbling through it. So, Jackie, I guess I'm curious. This is like it's technically park ground.
Correct.
So I'm trying to work my way through why we're approving the sponsorship that ends up going to the Levitt as part of this so that they get the money on a parks facility. Would this be similar to other parks? Do we have something similar that works like this?
I can't think of anything similar. So it's a three-way agreement between National Levitt, and Sioux Falls, but it is on parkland, so that's why it has to come through us first, even though this actual application agreement is through Whole McDowell and the Levitt. So the funding goes back to Levitt to help support their program, but because it is on park ground, that's where we come in and have to say, yep, we're okay with it before we can allow them to proceed.
I'm just trying to understand where we would be the owner of the land, but I guess I'm thinking ball fields might be an example of where we do sponsorship, but we don't approve those.
Yeah, I think the best comparison is probably likely the Washington Pavilion, for example, where they do naming within the building. It still comes back to the city council for approval of through the naming ordinance, and so that would be probably the best example. But obviously, we have sponsors throughout the park system. SEBA sells advertising, junior football sells advertising, and so there are various other probably smaller level examples where we do that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Counselor Steele.
Yeah, Parks Department, let's address this alcohol issue. So they're going to sell alcohol, right? You're going to be able to buy alcohol, like what kind of alcohol? Like beer, wine?
Beer and wine, correct.
So
they'll have a third party that they contract with for their concert series.
Okay, so somebody gets a beer, and then where do they drink the beer?
Within the shell area itself, the contained area of the Levitt shell.
And so if other areas are allowing people to bring their own beer in, why can't we do that in Sioux Falls?
So they're required to have security, so there'll be security kind of manning the perimeter of the space to make sure that beer that's being sold stays within and nothing is being brought in. But then the other thing with Falls Park that we need to look at is the ordinance not allowing alcohol as well.
So we could, but we are allowing alcohol.
Through one-day special permits, correct, within the concert series.
So every concert they have is going to allow that?
Yes, as long as they get the one-day permit, correct, which they will be doing.
The plant, yes. So I mean, I guess I can kind of relate to that. I mean, I wouldn't want it to become a thing where, just like, not that Jazz Fest is that way necessarily, but where, it's free, but then you're going to have to pay a hefty price on everything else. And like food, can you bring your own food in?
They will have food vendors.
But can people bring some food?
Are you allowing food? Yes.
Can you bring your own pop? But it's just the alcohol thing. So in order to change that, if we wanted to do that within the city council, what would we have to do to allow people to have their own alcohol?
So that would require an ordinance change within Falls Park.
Or okay, well, maybe we can kind of talk about that.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions or discussion? There's a motion and a second on the floor. All right, seeing none. And again, the motion, again, is to set a date of second reading for Tuesday, March 12, 2019. Can I get a vote on that, please?
Councilmember Sale?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
All right, that passes 7-0. Item 35.
Item 35 is a first reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, approving a grant of permanent easement. Recommendation set a date of second reading for Tuesday, March 12th, 2019.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, Don Kearney, Director of Parks and Recreation. Tonight, the VA is requesting a permanent easement on some storm drainage improvements that they made on city property on the west property line between the VA and Spellerberg Park. And part of the things that they were trying to work through was some flooding in their emergency room entrance that they had during heavy rains. They also, according to Lance Weatherly, who happens to be with us tonight as well, who really does a lot of the drainage and worked closely with the VA on this project, just to improve neighborhood drainage. But there were also a couple things that we were experiencing within the park as a result of the historical flows that go through the VA campus and then ultimately into the detention areas of Spellerberg Park, is that during heavy rain events, we would get erosion and scouring on the west side of the property line. And then we also would get some icing on the walkways that would ice up due to the flows coming overland. And it's so essentially what they're doing with the pipes that they put in. They basically put it underground instead of over the ground so that we didn't have those erosion issues or the ice formation during the wintertime on the walkways on the west side of Spellerberg Park. So again, they connected a storm drain pipe to the existing storm drain that was there before, and then they also installed a new outfall structure that empties out into the west detention pond. And from a timing perspective, this was all happening while we were under construction at the Midco Aquatic Center. We were working on the west detention pond and making modifications to that. So from their perspective, it was a good time for them to go in and do this work. So for illustration purposes, you're looking at Spellerberg Park in the Midco Aquatic Center. The dashed north-south line represents the property line between the VA's campus and their property and Spellerberg Park. The hashed areas are 30-foot easements that would allow them to service and maintain their infrastructure that they paid for to make those drainage improvements, and they vary in length from 40 to 80 foot depending on the location. So that the hashed area is the area that we're talking about, 30 feet by 45 to 80 feet in those two locations. So during that discussion with Lance and City Attorney's Office, and due to their time frame to run a permanent easement through the federal government's process and the VA's process, it was going to take much, much longer than it would, than they had time to be able to make those improvements. So legal developed a right of entry permit that they issued to allow the VA to install those improvements, which obviously were, as you can see, mutually beneficial both for the city and the VA. And so now the VA has now come back and said, hey, we'd really like to have a permanent easement, knowing that at the time they weren't able to just process it through their systems. And I would also mention that the VA is responsible for maintenance of those improvements that they made there. Public Works, again, Lance Weatherly has been actively involved. Danny Brown from City Attorney's Office has been working with the federal government on it as well. And obviously Parks and Rec is very supportive as well because it took care of a couple issues we had on the west side of the property. So staff would recommend approval, and Lance and I would be glad to answer any questions you guys have.
Thank you, Don. Anyone from the public wish to speak on this item? All right, councilors, do you have any questions for Don on this one?
Move to set the second reading for Tuesday, March 12th.
Second.
All right, motion by Councilor Erickson, seconded by Councilor Sale on that. Any discussion, council? Vote on this, please.
Councilmember Sale?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
That passes 7-0. Item 37. Am I right? No, 36.
Item 36 is a first reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, calling a special election on the issue of whether the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota City Council should amend Chapter 38 Elections, Section 38.010A, election results by requiring a plurality to be elected as council member. Recommendation set a date of second reading for Tuesday, March 12th, 2019.
Councilor Starr.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll make it really simple. The charter allows us when we see fit to put an item before the electorate to make a determination in an advisory role to give us direction of where we're headed as a council. We've been split on this issue 4-4 for 2 votes, 2 significant votes, and I believe that it's time that the citizens have an opportunity to weigh in on it. When this body can't come to a conclusion on its own, and the being split like we are, I just feel that it would be appropriate to put it before the electorate to allow at the May school board date of the election to let the citizens have an opportunity to weigh in on this issue, because we haven't been able to come to a conclusion. And it's become an issue for us, and I really believe that the population of Sioux Falls has an opportunity and should have the opportunity to weigh in on it. I feel really, I've stated my case in the past about the length of runoffs, the expense of runoffs, extending the amount of time, and the of what's required. So giving the opportunity for the public to weigh in. We've got a great opportunity having a school board election coming up in May. It'll limit the amount of expense and really get a sense of what the community feels and move forward with this issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Starr. Anyone from the public here to speak on this item tonight?
Scott Ersman, Sioux Falls. As we all know, this was a rule that was set in place for 20 years. No citizen ever complained about any of it. It was changed on a whim as 2 counselors are going out the door. There was a caller in a talk show, morning talk show, local talk show this morning, and a caller called in and he said they were talking about this, and a caller said, if these 2 counselors were so concerned about the majority vote, why didn't the day that they were elected, why didn't they change the rule then? They waited all the way to the end. It wasn't broken. We've had 3 opportunities to change it back too, and we've failed. We've asked the charter revision, they didn't want to do it. We've asked the council twice, they didn't want to do it. So now we're going to have to probably spend $20,000 letting the public decide, even though we shouldn't let the public decide, we should just change it back because it wasn't broken. There was nothing about it that was broken. And as for confusing voters, the rule hasn't been used yet. Since it's been changed, it has not been used. The last election, there was a council runoff in Central District that would have had to happen anyway under the old rule because there was no 34% plurality. So those 2 people still would have had to run in a runoff under the old rule. The rule has not been used yet. So why don't we put it on the ballot in May, change the rule back to the way it was for 20 years, unbroken, before the next city election, so we're back to normal. As they have mentioned, this costs money. You know, every citizen that I talk to, they understand this. They understand the plurality versus, it's not a complicated thing. They ask the same question. Why did they change it? They want council races to be more expensive. They want us to spend more tax dollars on them. They want the candidates to spend more money. They want to drag out the elections longer. I said apparently half of them do. It goes back to the simple thing that part of the council listens to the citizenry, the other half of the council does not. This is about bringing big money into our council races, and I'm ashamed of that. Where they can spend, I don't even know, combined, it's probably close to $1 million the mayoral candidates spent. The council races shouldn't be like that. You guys get paid under $20,000 a year, and I think that if you even spending that kind of money to run for office is ridiculous for a council race. And so let's take one more shot at this and put it on the ballot in May, change it back. It's the stupidest thing I'd ever seen ever done by the council.
Thank you. All right, councilors, can we get a motion on this?
I would move to approve, or move to set a second reading for Tuesday, March 12th.
All right. Is there a second on that?
I'll second it.
Okay. We have a motion and a second on that. Discussion, council? Okay.
I'd make it just a few comments. Since I brought the issue forward, I feel like I feel compelled to comment on this. after the meeting, the last meeting when we were discussing it, I actually talked about, since we voted down the plurality at 34%, I actually talked about, doing the plurality, just a simple plurality, which of course then ensures that there's no runoffs whatsoever. That's something that we hadn't really discussed. And I actually put that amendment in your box and was intending to bring that back this week, but then decided not to, in case any of you are wondering, why that amendment was in your box and I didn't do anything with it when I heard that this was going to happen. I'm not familiar with that process. I just don't recall, going through it or experiencing it, but it seems to me like an appropriate process for this situation, because the council members are saying that they don't want to do this, and they feel uncomfortable doing it. So I think that, and when I brought it forward, I really laid it out in two ways. I said, I'm bringing an issue forward with a two-part solution. One, I think we need to put something in place that's appropriate as a holding placeholder, and then two, take it the full issue and complete issue to the Charter Revision Commission, which I would still intend to do. However, I do think this is a good way to put it in place as a holding position until the Charter Revision. That would give the Charter Revision plenty of time to study it and put, perhaps again something different in place. Again, I'm interested in ranked choice voting. I know there's some other people out there interested in that, but I think that this would be a good way to get that accomplished. So I will be supporting this as a placeholder position. And I do still intend to bring it to the Charter Revision Commission, however.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Neitzer.
I should let you know kind of what I'm thinking about. I'm adamantly opposed to the 50% provision. It's unnecessary, it's destructive, it's completely antithetical to good government and the intent of our founders of the city government. For the life of me, I don't understand why half of the council continues to defend it. The provision does need to be repealed, absolutely. Now, that being said, I have serious concerns about this, and I'm going to tell you what I've been thinking about. First of all, this is an advisory election. It's not binding. Citizens might be led to believe that they are voting on something that is binding, and it's not. Our charter allows us to adopt ordinances. We can't delegate that. The citizens can only affect ordinances through the initiative and referendum process. That's not what's happening here. This would be a non-binding poll. It has no more power and authority than if we were to commission a poll. We could spend a lot less money just doing a poll. And some might say we've had an advisory election before the event center election, and that is true. And you might ask, well, what's the difference? And I'll tell you what it is. And Jim, if you could, you've already pulled it up, it looks like. Back in 2012, the council and the mayor passed an ordinance, 2011, to set an advisory election. But more importantly, they passed a resolution the same night. And that resolution said that they would honor whatever the voters said. If they voted for it, they would bond for the event center. And if they voted against it, they wouldn't. And that was done in a united fashion. So they passed a document that said we are going to honor this election because it's not binding. It wouldn't be binding. None of that is true here. There's no agreement. There hasn't even been a discussion I'm aware of to persuade the mayor and the other councilors to honor the results. Even though the council and the mayor agreed to honor the will of the voters back then, it's still criticized. Said, well, it was an advisory election anyway. We don't have any of that here, though. We don't have anything that would tell me that if we were to run this election and the voters, in this poll said, let's change this, that anything's going to change. There's nothing binding us. I don't have any statement from any of these other four of the mayors saying that they would do anything differently. This particular election poses a lot of challenges as well. You're talking about an off-year school board election. If you get 10% turnout, I'd be surprised. And so it's going to be an easy target to say, well, that was only 10% of the voters. What does that tell us? So the turnout's going to be pitiful. We're not asking them to choose from various options. In an advisory election, you could really ask anything. You could ask 3 or 4 questions. Do you want 34%? Do you want 50? Do you want simple plurality? And something else. And I guess in closing, the thing I really struggle with which is the precedent that this would set. And what do I mean by that? What I mean is there's many times where we disagree on something, and sometimes we're split down the middle. There's really tough things that we debate, but our job as in a representative government is to take votes. And sometimes they don't go our way. This one didn't go my way, and I think it's maybe 3 times now. I hate it. I don't like this. But I'm concerned about the idea that if we get into the business of saying, if I disagree with an ordinance and it didn't go the way that I wanted, I'm just going to go to the voters and take a poll that's not binding. I mean, for what? So I can bonk the other 4 over the head and the mayor and say, look, I told you so? If we could get some cohesion and say we would honor it, or we could go to the Charter Revision Commission, I could be for that, but I just struggle with this because I think the hard work is persuading others, and I don't think this is gonna do it for all of those reasons. That's why I really struggle with this item. Thanks.
Councilor Erickson?
I have a question for Tom Greco, please. I know Tom runs our elections for us, and so I am curious if you've had conversations with the school district and how this would look like as far as that's concerned. I believe we have, I might be saying the number wrong, I believe we have 6 different school districts within the city of Sioux Falls, and we're talking about essentially partnering or teaming up with the Sioux Falls School District. So I'm wondering how that would look and how the message is out and the expense that would be added potentially to that.
I think there's kind of two questions in there that need to be answered. So, well, 3. The first is, yes, I did speak informally with the school district this past Friday afternoon. But really the second question is, how would the election be conducted? One thing that would have to be addressed pending approval of the ordinance is how we are going to combine, because state law does provide in Title 9, in Chapter 913 municipal elections that we are allowed to, well, I take that back. School districts are allowed to combine with us. And that's what we've kind of traditionally seen over the years. That's where they pay us a certain amount that is managed by an agreement, typically a share of what they paid in their last standalone election, and we run the election. This past election, the 2016 election, the 2014, the 2012, and I'm just talking about the regular elections, your city clerk was the election official. We ran and were by law in charge of every last aspect of the election. The other side of it is just whether we, as a municipality, under the auspices of Title 13 or Chapter 13-7 school board elections, if we combine with them, in other words, they would take on that role and run it. So that's kind of a mechanical question and something that the council would have to decide. However, it can be done, but it is an important issue to address. And to kind of get at your second question, I think the key thing probably with any election is just that we obviously do want to go into it with a pretty solid plan. In past elections, I think we've done an excellent job with that. I think there's been a good degree of surety, especially during the regular elections for municipalities, that it was a combined Sioux Falls School District municipality election. And when it comes to the mechanics of running the election, there would have to be some messaging and some understanding, but really what it comes down to are the folks at those vote centers, if we did combine with the school district, because that's what they use, the folks at those vote centers simply just giving the proper ballot. So there are ways within election law and the way you set up an election to make sure somebody gets the right ballot. So it can be done. I don't have a tremendous, we as a city don't have a tremendous amount of experience kind of going in this direction. Now, we did do it in 2007. We did combine with the school district during a school district election. However, from what I understand and kind of piecing together that election, we were actually the ones running it. So we basically adopted the initial plan that the school district had in place, and we basically ran the election, of course, kind of hand in hand with the school district. So we'd have to sort through those things. It's certainly something that can be done. I wouldn't say it can't, but I think there would probably be some tough questions that the council would want to tackle over the next coming weeks, just to make sure that we do go into it correctly. Now, just one final point is that it is the governing body of either the school board, the school board in this case, and us. It takes an action by both. So in this case, it would take an action by us to combine with the school district, and essentially an action by resolution by the school district accepting our request to combine. And if we wanted to take other steps and volunteer to lead the election, we could coordinate that and have it work the other way.
So if I can follow up, in your years, and I'm sorry if, I'm assuming you've looked at this because you've met with them and clearly you know far more than I had anticipated. My question is, how many times have we done this? How many times have we had a special election with the school district?
We've done it once, and that was in 2007. Yeah, one time.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I don't have questions for Tom, but if I can continue.
Sure.
My concern is my concern is the inconsistency with this. Oftentimes we hear about how vote centers are awful, and vote centers don't encourage people to get out, and that the precincts are the way to go. But now we're flipping the coin and saying we want to do vote centers because that's what the school district does. And so now we're okay with that. The other thing that I have great issue with is the voter turnout for these elections are so small that this isn't getting a good idea. Why not do this at a general city election? Why not wait and do this at that general city election? I don't know whose pants are on fire that we have to do it right now. It just doesn't make sense to me for that. I 100% support taking this to the Charter Revision Commission. That has been my stance from the get-go, that we need a third party to take this, put it in the charter. We have no business legislating how we are elected. That's my right to say that, like it or not. That's where I stand, and that's where my vote lines with this, that the charter revision needs to do this. Now, they didn't do it last time, and I know there were some reasons why, but who's to say they're not going to do it in the near future? I think there's also been a little bit of misinformation as far as the history of how the elections were done. And upon doing some research, the plurality was from, get this, 1877 through 1909, and then by majority from 1909 through 1994, pre-charter. Once the charter came in, it was the 34%, including the runoff, and then 99 to 2016. I'm sorry, I said that wrong there. The 34 was from 99 to 2016. And who says 34? Why not 40? Why not 30? I mean, I don't know why this magic number of 34. And again, that's why I want the charter revision to take this on. If the charter revision, if the original authors of the charter felt so strongly in regards to 34%, why did they not put this in the charter? It's time. It's time to put it in the charter. It's time for us to not legislate how we are elected. For me, I feel that it's just not the right place. And so for that, I will not be supporting this action. I feel like it's very inconsistent. Still, I'll just stop there. That's all.
Councilor Kiley?
Thank you. Well, I do have to agree that the timing of this, calling for a special election during a non-city election year, the appearance of that is very bad. I'm going to try to be as polite as I can with that. And I would like to address a comment that we haven't come to a conclusion. Well, we have twice. 5-4 is a majority conclusion. For some reason, some members of this body do not want to consider the mayor as a member of the city council. Well, the mayor very much is a member of this council, as every other individual is. So we have come to a conclusion, just like they came to a conclusion back in 1998 when Bob Jameson and Tam Baker sponsored the ordinance to allow for a straight plurality. It was then at the last second, as Councilor Erickson maybe alluded to, amended to 34% requirement with a runoff provision. The vote was split and broken by the mayor at that time. And so I guess if we go by, we haven't made a conclusion here in the last 2 years. I guess a conclusion wasn't arrived at back in 1998 either, if we use the same line of thought. The population of Sioux Falls should have a chance to weigh in. Well, when we have a school district election that involves only the Sioux Falls School District, it is somewhat disenfranchising and confusing to voters of the other school districts that are members of Sioux Falls, and that would include Brandon on the northeast, and then Harrisburg and T on our southern borders as well, too. They do have school board elections, but not on May 21st. So again, why the rush to hold this on May 21st instead of at a regular city election the following year? The expense has already been addressed. In fact, there's quite a bit of question surrounding how much this actually would cost. I mean, basically, the only thing we're saving is you know, some poll workers and in a few other areas. I do believe that stating that this can be done on the cheap is just simply not factual information. And the low turnout, as Councilor Erickson, I'm opposed to this. I'll be voting no on this. Thank you.
Councilor Staley.
Councilor Kiley, you're talking about a low turnout, and I will tell you on the runoffs, you're going to really have a low turnout. I don't know why there isn't such a concern about that. And now I'm hearing councilors say that you think it should go to a vote. Councilor Kiley just said that you believe that the people should be able to weigh in on this. Why didn't you have that same feeling back in 2017 when Rex Ralphing shoved this in on an amendment on a second reading? Councilor Erickson, you said that from the get-go, you've wanted to put it back to the Charter Revision Commission. No, you voted after it happened to overturn it. You voted to put it back. It wasn't done the right way to start with. And we had some people, well, actually just one of you, I guess, here, who voted to change this thing. Didn't have any problem with the process at that time. Now, when we want to put it back, because I'll tell you, the public I'm talking with doesn't think this was right. They didn't have a problem with it. And there's a question as to why this was even done. And I don't want to take it personally, but there's been a question about maybe keeping the riffraff out, keeping the fray candidates out, as we heard last time, making it a place for the right people to be able to be in. And one of the people who just got elected told me during the runoff they were just going to go out and raise some extra money. If you got big pockets behind you, you can do it. And talk about expense. I was involved with the Drake Springs event, and our Tom and I had a conversation. Tom, you told me you didn't think it would be a problem at all. I talked to Bev Chase. She said we partnered with them for Drake Springs, and I believe, Tom, would you come up for a minute, please? The Bruce Danielson effort. What kind of a vote was that going to be? Had he been successful in that,
Just like with this, it's a decision of the council, and just
it would have been an advisory
so by
vote.
law, we can certainly combine as long as.
But Bruce Danielson, the thing with the administration building, which I know Councilor Greg Neitzer, I just found one of your old emails where you were supporting that, telling people to sign that petition to put that on a ballot. That was an advisory vote as well, right?
No, that would not have been. So an initiated measure, just like the measure in 2007, would be subject to a council decision as to when an election is held. So it could either be held as a special election.
But it was a standalone election. We were encouraging people. That would have been a standalone election with the same momentum perhaps as we're going to be seeing with the school district. And I'm hearing Counselor Neitzer say that we should have had a resolution attached to this today. I think that's what I'm hearing him say, that this is how it's falling a little short from the event center issue. But Bev Chase said that we could partner with them. During Drake Springs, we had a super majority. I've been involved with so many elections where it's 10 centers and it's 50 centers and it's a mega center, and we're playing musical precincts every time we have an election. So people have gotten used to that. But this was put into place in a second reading amendment. And the people who voted it through had no problem making it happen that way. We tried to change it, and they said, no, let's let the voters, we're not comfortable addressing this ourselves. So this is a way of saying, okay, if we really want the people to weigh in, let's do it on an off year, let's do it now. So I do think perhaps there'll be an energy if Councilor Neitzer thinks this should have a resolution packaged with it, and then the council can vote that down if they want to. But Tom, you did talk to Bev Chase. I talked to Bev Chase. She said there wouldn't be a problem making this thing happen.
As long as it's approved by the governing body, so that
right,
there
that's
has
right.
to be a decision to combine with the school district by this body and for the school district
And
to
she
accept.
said it would, and I think you said it would even be less than half. And the last school board election was, I think, around 45,000. So we're thinking it could be less than 20,000. And if this doesn't get changed and we go to a runoff in the general election in 2020, then that's good. That for like an at-large position would be 18,000.
No,
no,
that's
80,000.
That's not, I didn't quote any
No,
numbers.
I'm saying
because-
but for a
but if
runoff, like the mayor's runoff election was $80,000, right?
That's correct.
Yeah, so any runoff that we face in next year will be, if it's at large, it's going to be $80,000. 80,000. So Councilor Kiley, you're concerned about cost. You're concerned about cost. The school district, you said you're concerned about, let's not do this on the cheap.
Councilor Kiley, you want to respond to that, please?
Thank you. Well, a couple of things that I need to clarify for myself. I do not want Councilor Staley misrepresenting what I had stated. When I had quoted can't come to a conclusion and population of Sioux Falls should have a chance, I apologize if I wasn't clear, but I was actually quoting what Councilor Starr had mentioned when he briefly addressed the council. The cost and my comments about cost of the runoff, those have been your concerns, not my concerns, Councilor. So please do not twist that. And one other thing too, to be fair to Councilor Rolfing, quite frankly, I can't remember if it was before first reading or second reading, but I know that the week before his amendment, he talked to every member of this council, every member. He did not just spring it on as has been purported. So, thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion on this topic, Councilor Neitzer?
Just a quick follow-up for myself. Once again, the policy stinks. I hate it. But let me contrast again. Initiative and referendum are binding. An initiated measure is an ordinance that the people can pass. If it passes, it's law. We can't overturn it. A referendum brings something that we did to the voters. They can either affirm it or they can overturn it. We can't change that. That's far different than an advisory election. This would be a poll of a couple thousand people. That's all it would be. And my point about the resolution is it takes some hard work to get consensus and to get buy-in that let's say that the voters voted for this 52 to 48, and you got 6,000 people to vote on it. I don't have any indication here that anybody is going to change their position. There's absolutely nothing legally binding. If that passes, that it means that anybody has to pass anything. So we get a poll and we're just going to be stuck right where we were before. I'm confident that the people think this is idiotic. They tell me that. And I'm trying to represent the people, and I know the rest of everybody else is too for their own reasons. But I don't see what this is going to do. It's not going to do anything, which is why I also opposed another advisory election that was being brought forward. But I did encourage people to sign a petition to bring an initiative or referendum, I don't remember which one it was, to repeal the administration building, because that was legally binding, and I support people taking an initiative or a referendum when the time comes, if they want to have a redress of what we've done and they don't agree with it. But advisory elections, again, it doesn't accomplish anything. It's just going to keep us at the same impasse. We need to get this to charter revision, and I also want to also say in closing, I also agree that the mayor is part of the city council. His vote, his or her vote, whoever it is as valid as anybody else's. It's as valid as mine is. If it's 5-4, that's the way it is. That's the way the system works. That's what the charter says. You cannot like it if you don't want to, but the mayor is part of the city council. If you don't like it, you can change the charter. Votes don't go my way sometimes. I don't like it. That's the way it is.
Thank you, Councilor. I'm going to call for a vote on this, again, to set a date, a second reading for Tuesday, March 12. It was moved by Starr, seconded by Brecky. A vote, please.
Councilmember Sale?
No.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson?
No.
Kylie?
No.
Nitzert?
No.
All right, that item fails 4-3. Item 37.
Item 37 is a resolution including certain contiguous territory within the corporate limits of the city of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, annexation 9031, 2018, Westwood Valley, second edition.
This is a petition annexation by Rick Dunlap representing Westwood Valley LLC. It's located north of West 41st Street and west of South K-Rail Drive, kind of west of the Sanford Wellness Center over off of T. Ellis Road. It's roughly 6.4 acres in size. The purpose of this is the applicant is looking at continuing to construct a single-family residential development of Westwood Valley.
Okay. Thanks, Jason. Anyone from the public here to speak on this item tonight? Good evening.
Good evening, members of the council. Damian Grebel with Earhart Griffin and Associates. I would just be here to answer any questions that you may have on this annexation, and I would ask for your vote of approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for being here. All right, councilors, do you have any questions for Jason or for the applicant on this? Councilor Nitzert?
Just out of curiosity for the applicant, I've talked to Kenny on occasion, and you're kind of banging up against the limits of sewerability, and so what's the deal with just annexing just this little piece? Just doesn't seem like just total curiosity. No issue either way, but is this kind of the end of the line for you, or is it just property you could acquire, or?
No, it's in the property, but it just allows us to develop another street, to bring another street online. So before we move to the south, and now we're just gaining one more street to the west is what we're doing there. So.
Do you know if you can go any farther west right here, or you can only start going south? Do you have any idea? I know sewerability gets iffy right over here somewhere.
Right, we're right in that tipping area right there. So I believe we can go further west and further south as well. So. There are trade-offs to both, correct?
Okay, thanks.
All right, can I get a motion on this item?
Move to approve Erickson.
Second, Kylie?
All right, move to approve by Erickson, seconded by Kylie. Council, any other discussion on this? All right, a vote on this, please.
Councilmember Sale?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
All right, that passes 7-0. Item 38.
Item 38 is a resolution of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, approving the placement of sculptures on public property for an internationally recognized visual arts program known as Sculpture Walk Sioux Falls 2019.
Hey, Russ.
Good evening, Mayor, City Councilors in Sioux Falls. My name is Russ Sorensen, Urban Planner with the City of Sioux Falls. With me this evening is Jim Clark, the Executive Director of Sculpture Walk. This resolution is for approving the 2019 Sculpture Walk program. As was indicated at the informational meeting, this is the 16th year that we're celebrating for Sculpture Walk. This year we grew from 34 sculptures in 2004 to 59 sculptures proposed for 2019. In the 15 years of Sculpture Walk program's history, there's been over 777 sculptures that have been on public display. For the 2019 Sculpture Walk program, there were 137 entries that were received and juried by the Sculpture Walk Committee. The Sculpture Walk program is again an international program where 16 states and Canada are represented. In this year's program, there are 10 new artists, along with 10 sculpture artists from South Dakota. 7 new artists from Sioux Falls. The 2019 Sculpture Walk takedowns are scheduled for late April due to the snow and the weather that we've been having, and new installations will be early May. The sculptures have been selected and recommended for the placement in our downtown area, and the general downtown locations are pretty much the same as in previous years. From May to September, the public has the opportunity to vote for the People's Choice sculpture, and that sculpture is then reviewed and purchased by the city of Sioux Falls for up to $20,000. We've got more than 300,000 people that visit Sculpture Walk each year. After it being displayed in Sculpture Walk, the artwork can then be purchased, and that's why you see many pieces still around Sioux Falls. Several city departments have reviewed this year's program, as like in previous years. The Human Services, Public Works, Engineering, Risk Management, and Planning, along with the Visual Arts Commission, have conducted their respective reviews, and they're supportive of the proposed 2019 Sculpture Walk. This concludes our presentation, unless you have questions. Thank you.
Russ, thank you. I'm going to ask if there's anyone from the public here to speak on this item tonight. All right, councilors, do you have questions for Russ? Look for a motion on this item, please.
Move to approve.
All right, move to approve by Kylie. Is there a second? Second. Second by Sale. Let's take a vote on this, please.
Councilmember Sale?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley? Yes. Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson? Yes. Kylie?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
All right, that passes 7-0, and then item 39.
Item 39 is a resolution of the City of Sioux Falls approving the placement of a sculpture on public property.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, City Councilors in Sioux Falls. Russ Sorensen again with the City Planning Office. Along with me this evening is Director Don Kearney with Parks and Recreation, as well as Nancy Alverson, the Executive Director of the Levitt of the Falls. The Levitt Shell Facility, hospitality area, and restrooms are currently under construction, and the entire project, including the concert lawn area and so forth, will be completed this spring, hopefully, given the snow and the colder temperatures. The 2019 Levitt Concert Series will be announced on May 9th, and the music concert series will be from the June 14th through August 10th of this year. Building community through music is the Levitt's focus. This resolution is for approving the placement of a city-owned sculpture known as Maestro by artist Sherry Treby and Lee Looney from South Dakota, and selected by the public as the 2016 Sculpture Walk's People Choice Award on public property. The sculpture depicts a bronze maestro conducting music with a steel musical chime instrument, and the proposed site placement is located prominently on the north end of the oval sidewalk concert lawn area within the Falls Park West and the Sioux Falls Levitt Shell. As part of the Sioux Falls West redevelopment project, the city of Sioux Falls would be responsible for the project costs associated with sculpture placement and installation, and be included in the city's annual art conservation maintenance program. The Sioux Falls Imagine, the cultural plan for a vibrant and prosperous city, and the Sioux Falls Visual Arts Commission encourages and recommends public art integration within their public spaces and places. The Levitt Board of Directors has enthusiastically expressed their support for this placement. Additionally, the Sioux Falls Arts Council, Sioux Falls Visual Arts Commission and the Parks Board have recently reviewed the proposal and also are very much supportive of this request. That concludes our presentation, unless you have questions. Nancy, do you have anything else to add?
Thank you, Russ. Anyone from the public here to speak on this item tonight? Councilors, do you have questions for Russ on this one? I'd look for a motion on this, please.
Move to approve.
Okay, move to approve by
Second,
Brecky,
Erickson.
seconded by Erickson. A vote on this, please.
Councilmember Sale?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley? Yes. Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson? Yes. Kylie?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
Right, that passes 7-0. I'd like to recognize the godfather of Sculpture Walk, Jim Clark, who's here too. And thanks for all you've done on this program, man. Last item, item 40.
Item 40, report of the March 1st, 2019 notice of transfer of appropriations within major organizational units.
All right, counselors, any new business? Look for a motion to adjourn, please.
I so move.
Second.
All right, moved by Sales, seconded by Erickson. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
All those
Yes.
opposed, no. Motion is carried. Our meeting is adjourned. Have a good night.